Just wait. But no, I think there aren't. That is. Oh. But
Let's go.
Still don't know why that's still a command.
they have a collab for that time I got
The
reacquainted.
bail one.
Fine.
Oh, I asked Ash to do that for me.
It takes it out of it. Have it be like a normal person. Have it copied on your computer somewhere. That way you can pull it up whenever you need to.
I do.
Yes.
I have it in my own. I have it somewhere.
Here's their gotcha collab dragon.
Actually, I don't have the whole thing. I just have like the currency all the way to
Oh,
drop
which
of
one?
my
Oh,
being.
yeah.
Oh, is that Rimuru costume?
For example.
But what is exactly the difference here?
I took the time to handcraftingly tailor it to CAD.
Darmail.
No.
I see. Pretty clever.
I still need to make one in FF14, but I think the macro limit there's a macro limit. There's curse you target I character name hereby vow your fears made flesh a true class target. That automatically does the target name and my class to the macro. Well, true Azure, but currently mainly because like being brain dead. Wait, are the Borks dragoons in your world? Do they have spears? Do they jump? I did read the lore. We only had one of them named.
Listen, Bob. Now you can just. Listen, Bob. Just commission the artwork of it. You'll win.
Make the fighter subclass specifically for doges.
Surprising. No one cat picks Saber.
Shame he won't. The coins for her.
You do get
Or
the
no,
coins
you
for
get
her.
the
You
coins
don't
on
get
the
a
USO.
USO.
I haven't gotten a single USO.
If I got the USO, I'd have 10 USO. Also, good morning,
You
everyone.
were right. This episode is good. This shit got good. Finally.
We just had 7th anniversary, right?
Yep.
Yes.
26 million download count. My next opportunity to get a rescue goal. Look, I need to get 2 more copies. Later in a few days, actually. Nice. Next one will be 27 million. February. Why do they give us so many rescue girl banners? Is this them apologizing for not giving us new Ren faces?
They just
No,
gave
this
you
is
one.
the Ren banner.
Well, like, right, but this was before. I'm looking at, like, from the lens of 1,000 days as opposed to 1,700.
I feel like we're splitting hairs here.
Well, I know. I have to be. I'm happy for, like, I have. There's like 3 years before I get to complain again. Yeah.
You know, 3 saber faces, 3 Sakura faces, and then a Ren face.
Doing the Mamba.
I mean, she only confined to that text box.
Gaining sentience.
Yeah, I'll do something. No, it's gonna make a spin. She can't go nowhere now.
That logic doesn't apply to Sonic. He can spin and go places.
Hey, this ain't Green Hill Zone, motherfucker. And now she's pointing at me. Wow, what the?
For what? Just to disable.
No, just use it.
Oh, I'm glad you have a button for that too. But does she have a muffin button? Okay,
Pretty sure
now.
that's the twerk dance. Chad Cat's getting old. He's taking a while.
You guys back blown out earlier. He apologized for the delay.
That's what she's.
You know, that right there wasn't gonna make me laugh as I was sipping my drink, but then when Mega laughed, it almost made me spit out my drink.
Ah,
It was funny.
And it's worse because what Cat said didn't get passed on to chat.
You're right. That's funny.
I'd go kill myself. An honorable Sudoku. It's not math, it's logic.
Because the chat can hear you. You need to do that without them hearing.
Well, that's. You're busy tonight. You're busy.
Sudoku. I thought you were saying.
Oh, that's intentional. Goodbye forever.
Wow. You don't
Oh, that
know
wasn't
that. Hello, everyone. How's it going? Give me 1 second here. I'm rebooting my bot. I'm just trying to make sure that it's working. Who was that? Yeah. Sorry, I'm starting a little bit late. I actually was getting ready on time, but my back is suddenly killing me. So all the stuff that I was rushing to try and do right after I went live, I am just really slow right now. But we should be good to go here as soon as the bot reboots itself. I did just get the tweet out. Do me the favor, go give it some love. You guys know the drill. Up Brokeback Mountain, how dare you? How dare you, good sir? Okay, I think it rebooted. Anyone on YouTube, if one of you can say something. I'm sure one of you is out there. There we go. Okay, yeah, now I'm seeing both of you. All right. That's the weird problem is the bot is just somehow breaking in between streams and I'm not really sure how. Maybe my ISP or something. All right, let's get this party started. Hello, everyone. How's it going today? So, back aside, we've got a lot to do. I actually have the Fate Stay Night ticket, of which no one's going to be able to guess what my pick is. And I had, probably planned on taking some time, really, to get to talking about the 5th Append. But I think today is the day I'm going to do it with you guys, because I had some breakthroughs with looking at it, and so I've got some news for you guys in that regard. So I think it'll be a very interesting segment. I'm going to say you guys are not going to want to miss that part. On the interim, with any time that I have left on stream today, we'll be playing more of the First Ascendant. I did also figure out some farming stuff in that game, so hopefully it won't be as repetitive for you guys this time. And let's see. I've also got the strengthenings that we have to talk about, as well as getting all of my AP down. So we've got a ton of stuff to do. Let's go ahead and get the party started here. Let me pop open that. No, wait. Sorry. Oh, God. What did I do? Oh, God. What did I do? Okay. That was moderately terrifying. I needed to not ever do that again. I should make a prediction for his FSN ticket. No, you shouldn't. No, why? Why what? All right, and hello, everybody. Here's today's artwork. Do me a favor, go give the artist some love as usual. Also, chat, I need big prage for tonight. I need people to pray and hope that we get Lartoria as the buff, because dear lord, my wife who needs it. No, you're wrong, as. Yeah, it'll be her. You're totally right. You figured me out. Okay, so it looks like I've done all of that, which means we get to go right back into Les Embers. And of course, it relogged me, which means that I probably now actually have the. It means I probably actually have the stuff for it. I did fail a storm pod node earlier today because I accidentally took Erish into the node where you actually need class effectiveness. That did not go well. I actually made it all the way to the end and then proceeded to basically lose everybody because Erish does poison the shit out of your units. So it didn't go too hot. I might have been able to live without the poison a couple turns longer, but I think I would have fallen just short regardless. And yep, sure enough, there we go. Now I have 3 more of them to do. My prayers are all for Buntoria. Thank you, Sleepy. Appreciate it. That's what I like to see. Stinky Sparish. Wow. Wow. Okay. Yeah, I did swap in Medusa there. I did get her up and running. She's at least at 610.6 for right now. I need to look at my overall plans for her and just kind of see. Okay, where were we? Boom. There we go. Famitsu discussion next week, Monk. Yeah, I was trying to do the summary today, but I actually got distracted. I've also got a return that I need to get done at work, so we'll see, right? I don't have very much time to sit there summarizing Trubs' stream, but I definitely want to do that, and we'll definitely sit down and have a discussion, because I have seen already some misinfo on it. I have seen people taking things out of context. I think I also saw there's a AI translation of it posted. I'm not sure if that'll be accurate either. So we'll get to it. Don't worry. We'll actually sit down and talk about the Famitsu interview. As far as I've understood, though, there is no mention of coins. So in that regard, yeah, they kind of messed up. Rolled 3 packs yesterday to try and get some more copies of Summer Ibuki and got her 2 times to MP3 with my last 60 Sankorts. So also got Saber Spook NP5 now. Oh, that's weird, because you got Saber Spook right before you could have gotten a free Saber. Out of all the other spooks you could have gotten, I would have said that should have been the one you probably hoped you didn't get at that point in time. But I totally understand. And you can never be upset at pulling waifu. Okay, which is the free quest you're doing in an A? I think it's Reichenbach is the one that I'm on. I don't think it's as good for the Ash, but I think it's really nice for the swords. It drops both of them. But I probably need to go sit on the actual Ash node here soon. When you pick Arturia with the ticket, do you plan to burn her ASAP? No, why would I burn her? What's wrong with you people? Now we wait for the 30 million download campaign for CoinFix. Yeah, I do find it kind of interesting because if I remember correctly, they did say something along the lines of like, hey, yeah, like it'll happen when it happens. I really found it funny that they didn't want to like tease that in any way. I would have thought that Mr. 2 would have hyped it up, especially given that he talked about the 30 million download campaign last year. So it was definitely an interesting thing to see. On the bright side, do you get more coins? I do, in fact, get more coins. Yep. And I will say that does lend an extra like level of consideration at this point in time. Even if you guys already have an NP5 of Saber, it may be worth considering just getting that many more coins since we now know there are 2 new appends in the horizon. So we don't know when they'll come to an A. We don't know if it'll be early or anything like that. We also don't know if it'll actually end up like getting quality of life in the future. We know that they at least plan to let us be able to switch our appends. We don't know if there'll be limitations to that or how that system will be implemented. So, or even how long it'll take them to implement it. They said give them a couple months, so we'll see, right? But it is an interesting thing nonetheless. There's no QP on hand to use any of it. Yeah, I mean, I'll say depending on the server, right? So like if you're on NA, we will be getting Gouda Gouda eventually, and that'll have like the tea leaves and stuff. And I think there is some QP in that event. And then worst case scenario, by November you will have Morgan Fest coming. JP is overdue for a lotto, so we're probably expecting one here probably after summer. Kind of in that September slot, which is traditionally when we have received lottos in the past. So we'll just have to see if that's something that kind of continues, or if maybe this is a year where we actually only get one lotto, which is definitely an interesting thing if they do that into the future. Out of curiosity, how good is Saber Medusa? She's quite nice. She has the ability to basically loop and stun people, so it's really good. Kind of derp last night. Rolled the story banner. Mordred finally came home to JP. Yeah, that's sort of the issue with story banner, right? It's always there's no rate up. Will there be another back to school campaign for NA? It's possible. I don't know what the heck they plan to do after this download campaign because, like, chat, we're still in early August. Our next event, according to their roadmap, is not until early September. So, like, I don't know, right? Like, I don't know what they plan to do. I did see somebody ask me earlier, like a couple days back, or maybe even a week or so ago, like, do you think that they'll end up giving us something like the Imaginary Scramble interlude like early? And I'm like, yeah, that's possible, but I don't really know, right? Like at that point, they'd be kind of going out of order. Do you think I should wait to unlock her last append for the new ones? Yeah, I mean, I think the 5th append will be quite nice on Spishtar. Sorry, wait, Spishtar. My bad. I was thinking Erish. With Erish, the 5th append's quite nice. With Spishtar, I mean, honestly, those 2 new appends are quite good. I'm struggling to remember what Space Ishtar's 3rd append is naturally, anyways. If anyone knows off the top of my head, feel free to shout it out. Oh, thank you to the anonymous gifter for the 2 gift subs. Appreciate that. Chat, can we get some new gift emojis in chat? And if you guys are one of the 2 that got it, make sure you guys go thank anonymous gifter. Is it Archer? I mean, I'm gonna be real with you, and I'm gonna say that the majority of the time you're probably not gonna care, right? So, like, given the fact that she's a neutral looper, she doesn't have any real advantage against archers. It may make the difference in a node, but you got to consider the fact of like, well, if you're gonna try to be using her neutrally, what's the difference between that and like, say, a saber node, where it's like, well, she's not going to be doing any more damage to that unless you have the append in the case of archers. But at the same time, I'm also not really sure that it matters because you wouldn't be able to go over that bar basically for any of the other classes. So yeah, I mean, I would probably tell you that that's not as big of a deal for her, that third append, and I would probably focus instead on, you know, some of the other ones. But it's up to you. Like, I think at that point, it's kind of how you see yourself using Space Ishtar, whether or not you see herself getting into things like challenge content and stuff with her, like content where you're not just going to be 3-turning, I guess is the better scenario that I'm talking about. Because in that regard, that can definitely be a consideration. Anti-Jane, yes. Would the fifth append even affect her in normal farming? No, not really. I mean, like, trying to remember, chat, isn't her charisma like 6 turns, or is it 7? Oh, well, we're about to test out Medusa. I was looking at chat and then I looked back up and my brain was mentally on the 3rd turn, and we were not. We bet to sleep eternally. Yep. Yeah, we're going to talk about the 5th append today. Let me go look at Spishtar's kit here real fast. Just because I'm just not remembering the cooldowns. Okay, so her first one's 5 turns. Yeah, you're not gonna get a big benefit out of that. Second one's also 5 turns. I mean, if you could find a way to double up the NP damage, maybe, but otherwise, no, I don't really see it. I don't really see the cooldown append benefiting her outside of a challenge scenario. Okay, so now I have the ultimate joy of just sitting here and trying to whittle her down until I can get basically Vitra to kill Takaru here. It doesn't matter. Buster farming loves that. Yep. Better get the second append. Oh yeah. Being honest, comma Avenger aged way better than Space Ishtar. No, I wouldn't say that. Like I think Space Ishtar is still really good. I think both of them are kind of out damaged at this current point in time. And that is what it is, right? Like I don't think that's necessarily like a bad thing. Like I think what I always ask myself is damage wise, like how badly does someone need the damage buff? It's one thing to be out damaged, it's another thing to be out damaged so poorly that you're just not competitive anymore. And in both of their cases, they are still wildly competitive, so I don't think it's a big issue. It's not like the situations that we have in some of the other scenarios, like say Tiamat versus the alter egos, Kukulkan versus some of the other foreigners, Melisandre versus some of the other Lancers. It's not like, oh man, they're just completely outclassed and totally worthless and someone that you shouldn't use. They're still doing fairly solid in that regard, so I think it's a-okay. You know what? Boom, baby. May as well get some free Oberon damage so that we can do Oberon gaming. How would you like a Spishtar costume that's FSN Rin? I mean, I gotta be honest, I don't even use the Parvati one. Like, I leave Parvati in her original outfit because I think it looks better to me. Not that it's anything against Sakura, but I feel like it's more just that, like, I actually like Parvati's outfit, so I like seeing it. If you wanted to give it to her, sure, you could do that. Like, I don't have any, like anything against it. I'm just saying I don't know that I would necessarily use it. I see that on OG Ishtar. Maybe, right? Yeah, I mean, like, in all honesty, OG Ishtar would probably be the better choice just because she doesn't have a costume versus, like, Spishtar already has one from her event. Okay, so now we got the Castorias back in. This is going to be somewhat spicy meatball here. You know, I should have used it for overcharge. Because that snake is probably going to get somebody here killed. We scuff farming? Yes, farming. That's what we'll call this. Will the switch happen on Appends for an A? In most cases, I spent coins on 4-star or above. For example, Cersei might be helped by 4th Append more than 1 or 3. I mean, are you asking, like, will we be allowed to shift Appends on an A? No, probably not. That'll be a change that'll happen. There you go. There goes Oberon. That'll be a change that'll happen, like, basically down the line, right? Because I assume, at least for right now, it's going to be a case of, like, we'll hold off on this because we're skill sealed. Yeah, I assume it's going to be a case of like JP will get the adjustment and then NA will get it when it happened on JP 2 years from then. And the only exception would be if they brought the new Appends to NA earlier, then they might allow it earlier. Because, like, for right now, there's no reason that anyone needs to, like, cry about shifting because we simply don't have the new Appends. So it's like, even if they were to give us that functionality, there would be no point to it. Unless I'm misunderstanding what you're asking. Okay. Screw it. Let's do it. I'm hesitant to kill the snake, but I feel like I kind of need to kill the snake. Is that just 3 times 3 turns invincibility? I'll sit on that for right now. I just meant at some point. Yeah, I think we'll get it at some point. Wait, I forgot. Advanced quests are farmable? They're not farmable, but you can redo them. Like, that is to say, redoing them won't get you anything, but you can if you want. At least I have a saber on my backline. If I didn't, I would have pulled out of this. Because this is still not going to be great damage, but I maybe will eventually win. Go ahead and do that. And just keep doing the mighty chain here. Please stop beating my Castorius to death. Thank you. Gonna keep doing the chain here. You can also just give up. You'll only lose 20 AP. You're not wrong. It's just, this is me trying to save all of my runs because that way I don't lose 20 AP. It's quite literally that, and that alone. And I'm sorry about this, chat. This is actually the first time I've even done this. I've been pretty flawless on not messing this node up. And then today I accidentally took Space Airish, and then here I accidentally bricked the unit. And it's the first for both. I have literally not done it prior to that. So I basically have a 2-for-1 chance here. What do you think about hard capping 3 append unlocked at a time? We can switch between all 5 depending on the situation. I mean, that's an interesting concept for balance purposes, but I'm not sure that it really matters, right? Like, at that point, if they're going to give us 5 appends, locking us to only 3 would kind of almost be like worse, right? I understand that people, you know, that are completionists want to be able to complete all 5 of the appends, but I don't know. I don't like, chat. I'm just gonna go ahead and point this out. Trying to be completionist in a gacha game is literally just saying, all right, cool, I'll spend money. So then being like, but I shouldn't have to spend this much money. I'm like, you play a gacha game. It keeps releasing new units. You will keep having to spend money. That number will always rise as long as you have a completionist mentality. So in that point, I don't even really understand the complaint for it, because it's just kind of like getting stuck on the semantics of it. Like, to me, I don't think it's a good idea to be totally completionist in one of these games. Okay, so we actually did manage to live. None of the Castorias ended up getting Das Boot, which is good, yeah. I do have a burn though, I do have a burn, and I have no snack cards, so we're just gonna go ahead and fire off the NP one more time, protect everybody, try to mitigate the damage. How's it going, Anubis? Mike, thank you for the follow. Welcome. What's an SSR servant y'all never used? I'll go first. The Pope. Oh, the Pope's actually pretty fun. Okay. Go, Medusa. Your time is now. I really do. Like, Medusa's first ascension is by far my favorite for her in this form. Like, that first ascension just has, like, actual charm. I feel like the other ascensions are just kind of, like, whitewashed, where you can't really tell what's going on with them. Drip Deuce is nice, yeah. Okay, let's pull one of these. We're gonna pull one of these. I just got her, but I have no plans to use her either. Galatea, but she's recent. Wait, sorry, did I miss something? Depends. I eat that completionist mentality out. I only care for mana loading and 120. Yeah, I agree with that. I think that's the healthier approach. And that's why, like, I've said it before, I'll say it again. The system was already scummy considering you had to roll the 6 copy, right? So I do believe that at that point everyone should have already, like, kind of woken up. But I guess some people had managed to like gaslight themselves into thinking, but wait, I can still do it. And it's like, yeah, you can. It's not a good idea. You can, but it'd be what it'd be. Okay, so I do actually need a Castoria card here. They're actually going to take the Mighty Chain. I'd like to make my waifu completionist, but I'm not going to roll above NP5. It's dumb. Yeah, and I agree with that, right? Like, I think it's one thing to operate within the confines of the game normally and its systems. I think it's another thing when the game suddenly says, like, hey, there's no actual benefit to doing this, but you can if you want, and you choose to do it, right? I think that's kind of where I have to go, like, well, hold on. All right, so let's pop this. And this? Go MP gain. I actually don't even care about the smaller snake. It's just Vitra here that's the problem. Vitra's gotta die. Is the possibility of 120 any worse than the possibility of NP5? Wait, what do you mean by the possibility of 120? To be fair, you can complete everything in this game with a good DPS NP2 and a support NP1. You don't need 120 NP8 waifu. Yeah, I agree. And that's why, like I said, like, Chad, I pointed this out years ago when people first started rolling for NP6 that it was just a really like bad toxic mentality. Even amongst us content creators, it's a no-win situation because it's like at that point we're just paying for views. We're trying to basically like T-pose on each other and be like, look at me, I'm doing NP6. Look at me, I'm doing NP7. It's like there's always just going to be somebody that's going to try to like top you. And so I just basically said, screw it, I'm not playing that game anymore. I did it for one unit and it was Castoria, and I just said I'm not doing this ever again. It was just not worth it. And that's kind of why, like, that's where my judgment like was impaired, and basically this whole system got the better of me. So I can't imagine for people, you know, just trying to sit there and like kind of getting influenced by the content creators to actually think that this is something that they need to do, right? I think even rolling NP5 already in and of itself is wasteful and whaley enough, right? Like, it just is what it is. Look at me, I'm doing NP0. Yeah, exactly. Happy Free Artoria Day. Thank you, Winter. It's funny because Lartoria is a welfare on arcade. Only 120 I'm going for is Fergus. Yeah, I mean, honestly, like, your permanent 3 stars and lower are, like, way easier to handle that sort of thing for. Don't lie, you NP John past 5-2. Yes, I absolutely have more than NP5 of certain units. The only unit I tried to go beyond 5 was Castoria. Well, the price was paid. We got Bond 5 Medusa for that. Damn, someone likes Fergus? Yeah, why not, right? Apologies for my NP6 Morgan, but it was accidental. No. Look, chat, you don't have to apologize to me for anything, right? And I want to be clear about this. I'm sure some people in the audience are like, oh, here Cad goes again. He's ranting about this. I'm like, I legitimately don't care if you guys want to do it. I just am more looking at this from like myself and the content creator perspective and saying like, hey, I need to at least be somewhat responsible for my actions. Like, I shouldn't be sitting here and telling y'all to do this or that, knowing full well that A, I don't want to do it, and B, it's kind of toxic and just going to cost people money, right? And so that's why, to the same degree, it's like I'm not a huge fan of other people doing it either. Like, at least in the sense of like people that everyone looks towards. We'll go ahead and put her back in. I didn't want to do it, but she just came home twice when I was rolling for the final copy. Yeah, that definitely happens. I've had a couple of that myself. So, like, I'm not saying that that's trying to roll for 6 copies, right? Only want 2 more Summer Abbey. Farici, thank you for the follow. At least ticket let me NP5 my Artoria. Nice. Yeah, dude, don't forget, chat, you cannot get a USO from the ticket. So that is a thing. Like, if you're gonna pick Artoria despite already having NP5, at that point you're either picking it just because you like her or because you want the coins. I think that's both are perfectly valid reasons to do so. In the same way that people will pick other units just because they like them, right? But yeah, I gotta say that like don't try to do it just for the USO. No, but you can get the nice C. True. I've been avoiding Summer BB on the GSR specifically so I don't get MP6. Yeah, I mean, you guys have seen me. I've taken a 6 copy with things like a selector and stuff before. But usually I just go ahead and say, like, if there's anything else I want, I'll try to take that instead. But if there's nothing else I want, it doesn't matter anyways, and I don't care. So at that point, I just go ahead and do it, right? Because getting one whole USO would be that catastrophic. I know. I gotta admit, like, I'm really surprised that they dare put a restriction on it. Because it's not like it's actually changing much of anything. I remember the Lartoria ticket. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I won't deny that. And if you guys remember, right, like I think the only thing that I absolutely could have taken on that ticket besides Lartoria was Tamamo. And 1, I knew Tamamo was permanent, and 2, I also know that I don't use Tamamo that often, that it wasn't like that big of a deal. And hilariously enough, I still have that second copy of Tamamo because she did show up afterwards. So that kind of just worked out for me. But if I actually like didn't have Tamamo, would I have picked a 6 copy of a unit? No, 100%. I would have straight up, and like, Chad, if you're ever wondering why I do certain things, feel free to ask. I'm more than happy to like tell you guys like, hey, here's why I'm doing what I'm doing. Cookie, thank you for the follow as well. I've been using Space Airs for a bit and realized, isn't she a little bit mid? We talked about that when I went over her damage numbers. They're actually like not crazy numbers. You're gonna see a lot of people hyper. So all right, chat, let's go back in time in the history books and how do I put this to you guys? Pre-buff, Erish was like never really that strong, but you had people acting like she was the best Lancer in the game and like the strongest amongst them. She always had some really good farming applications because of her ability to stack charismas, but outside of that, her damage was actually quite poo-poo. And it wasn't really until she started getting buffs that changed around. And that's kind of where I just go ahead and say, like, yeah, that's people's bias coming in. You'll see a lot of people hype a unit, even if the unit isn't that good. I'm not going to say, though, that that's what's going on here. I do believe that Summer Erish is actually pretty solid. It's just keep in mind that it is a neutral damage dealer, and thus you're not going to get a ton of extra damage with a neutral damage dealer. Even things like Berserkers are neutral for her, so you got to keep that in mind that like she's not going to be just absolutely bursting things down unless you are against those extra classes. How are the Floos? The Floos are doing good. They're roughly space-ish stars numbers. Yep. I got really lucky. I rolled MP5 Mel and got the 5th on GSSR, and I've avoided all GSSRs with her because I don't want a USO. Yeah, I mean, especially if you're not someone that has the capacity to actually one day be able to spend USOs. Like, if you've managed to play the game for years without getting a USO, you really don't want a USO at that point, because odds of you getting a second one even are low, and even by the time you had managed to get to 10, the game has probably been out for decades at that point. Hey, what's up, Musaki? How's it going? I picked NP2 Arish because I think in the last chapter of part 2, she'll be focused on the rest of extra classes. Yeah, you're not wrong. I do think that that's actually kind of smart in that regard. I think that she will be very useful down the stretch here, even if she doesn't seem so right now. Right? Like, you guys seeing me, I'm gonna be real with y'all, chat. Two, like several things here. So basically, number one, I do not have an MLB Black Grail on JP. 2, this is just an NP2. 3, I am actually not min-maxing her. I am straight up, like, instead doing, like, what I'll just call a quick comp, where I'm doing the minimal amount of button presses, really, in order to get through this. And if you guys want to see a, like, min-maxed comp, I can kind of show you that, but you'll see here. It's very close to what I did, like, 2 runs ago. Now you can see she's already ranked 4, which is the amount that I ended the prior one on. How many copies of Mudrain do I have on JP? I have 2. I have the same amount of Mudrains as I have Black Grails on JP, which is just very, very sad. I would get the Beast class Append unlocked this summer. I'd love as my extra 2 is already done. Like, low key, I would actually prefer if they didn't. Like, I would prefer if they unlocked Beast last, because that's the least amount of classes that actually apply to, or sorry, least amount of characters that it actually applies to, right? But like, yeah, I mean, I totally get that. Nothing I can do with that. Is this the special instant grind that lets you farm Sanct Quartz on an A? No. I wish. Got about 9 permanent SSRs at NP5 and 7 Spirit Origin, most from Spooks. Yep. Yeah, as you begin to whale, as you begin to like spend a lot of money on the game, eventually you start getting a lot of your like permanent units up to NP5. That's when you start getting a lot more USOs. Like, my rate of USOs has kind of gone up over time here. Let's see. I'm only going to get the 1 rank of overcharge, so actually doing that is better for stacks. There you go. I got the 6. Oh, I didn't even pop the Mystic Code buff, did I? Well, okay. Sorry, chat. I didn't min-max it again. Too many things I have to remember when using her. I have so many Vitras. Nice. I'm proud to have an MLB Kaleidoscope. Yeah, no, you definitely should be. Kaleidoscope, especially at MLB, is really good. So don't let anyone tell you otherwise if you're free to play. I think it's actually kind of nuts, and I think that that free 5-star CE that we got at Anniversary was a huge deal. I think a lot of people like will probably underestimate that, but that is like absolutely amazing, especially for the more free-to-play oriented crowd. There are plenty of people that I've seen over the years that have complained like, oh, I can't even get a K-scope. I can't even get a Black Grail. So like, just having the capacity to actually have it is huge. Let alone to be able to like MLB something. I mean, look, I'm gonna say the same thing that I said to people on Twitter when I posted, and it's like, I don't know why everyone seems to want a QSH buff, because QSH is still fantastic and still absolutely solos a ton of content. Like, I gotta be honest, I'm really not sure what I would give him that wouldn't just make an already really solid unit even, like, more scary. Like, he doesn't really have a deficiency. The only issue is he can't solo everything because some things have invuln, pierce, or buff strip. And I'm like, oh no. Week 1 player, free K-scope was my first. Ooh. The QSH buff was Mighty Chain. Yeah, that too. He's actually been the beneficiary of a lot of the carding changes. Plus, you have like things like class score and stuff now. Though, admittedly, we don't have ruler class score yet. So that is, I'm like low key hoping that we get the ruler class score with Ordeal Call 3, which I think we should, because I think if I remember correctly, hearing it's going to be the focus of the next one. Well, it is what it is. No, you know what? Screw it. Let's do it. There, that's min-maxing. It's like a 95 chance that it's ruler. Yeah, that's basically what I've heard everyone say. I won't be surprised, right? And I'm kind of looking forward to it in that regard, because I would love to see a little bit more like lore on rulers, because I think the concept of ruler prior to FGO was pretty clear. I think FGO has extremely muddied the waters for what rulers are and what they can be. So I would like to see that get touched on a lot more. Murasaki is my most used AoE servant at the moment. Nice. There we go. Got the darling there. And again, there are more things I could do here. I could be using Proto Merlin. I could be basically having an overcharge CE. I could be using, obviously, command seals if I really wanted. But, like, that to me is like, that's basically how I'm going to get the most out of a comp. It's just, if I clear without getting her all the way up, like, I think that's just better, right? Like, rather than wasting the extra button presses. But that's just me being me. Bob told me I'm a heathen because I don't want to get her to the max rank to see the special animation. QSH is insanely fun in Grail Wars because he just sits there laughing as he hits everything. I think a lot of rulers, honest to God, are, right? Like, I think like where rulers really shine is like longevity content like that, and they just absolutely shit on things, and it's great. Your opinion on FGA and using that for farming? I don't like it. I'm not gonna say that like no one can use it, but I certainly don't think it's good for the game, and I don't think it's basically anything like I ever would care to do. Do you still play League of Legends? I've kept my eye on it, but no, I haven't had the time to play it. Bunny laughs at Grail Wars. Oh yeah, 100%. Like that is truly where she is at her best. Okay, so that's JP done. Wait, did we already do an A chat? Did I do an A as I came? No. Dear Lord, I'm sorry. We have wasted a lot of time. That one freaking node on JP took forever. Okay, let me get AP burning here. Yes. Yes. Chad can see my comp, but you know what? We'll actually speed this up here. I will speed this up. And I will go Wajum. Yeah, I'm just gonna do that. And that should just auto loop. That reminds me, I got MP2 QSH and one multi trying to get MP5U back on June. Yep. I hope John is receiving the strengthening quest in her third skill tomorrow. Yeah, I've said, like, if it's not Bunny, I really want it to be John. John is just not in a great scenario. Like, to me, even looking at someone like QSH, he is still way more usable than someone like John right now. It's not that you can't take John into a node, it's that you basically just don't want to, and that's kind of why I have issue with it. Kat, have you heard about the huge Netflix leaks? Entire seasons of their shows in their entirety leaked online. Crazy. Yeah, I mean, someone's probably going to get fired about that. I hadn't seen or heard anything. I did hear like part of the new season of Arcane got leaked. I can just assume that at that point it's basically that I don't know, like somebody's disgruntled with Netflix. And, you know, from all their past like worker strikes and stuff, I'm not surprised to hear that that's the case. It sounds like Netflix doesn't really treat their employees very well. Or maybe their employees are over entitled and stuff like that. I'm not really sure. All I know is there's some level of disagreement with management at this point. Of Dan to Dan. Why not buff Himiko? Why not possible? I didn't say it's not possible. They could certainly buff Himiko. Like, chat, listen, I'm gonna say this right now. I have people that are walking around saying that Buntoria is the worst SSR in the game. I disagree with it. I think they're insane. I think they're actually crazy. But the fact that people are making that claim tells me something about that. That, yeah, Buntoria could use a buff. I hope it's not John. She just got a buff. She did, but I'll say again, John could still use more. Dear Lord. Like, the issue with John at this point is she's just pretty much totally outclassed by Castoria. The last buff did help her out, but parts of John's kit are still just really atrocious. Try to get our trade to 110 while the XP is double? Go for it. Who's the worst SSR in the game, in your opinion? I don't really know. I don't really sit there and try to think about that. Usually the people that sit there and say that, they're either saying it just for the shock value of it, or they're just pretty negative people that constantly dwell on it. I can tell you that, like, prior to his buff, I did have a feeling that it might have been Constantine. And even still, Constantine was still usable. There was just obviously a level of like, well, I'm not really sure that you ever need him or really need to take him, right? But I don't know. Hey, what's up, CZ? How's it going? The worst SSR in the game is the one I dislike the most. Honestly, probably a better take, right? Simi's in a really bad place. Yeah, I would say Simi's definitely down there. She's not unusable, but it's the same deal where it's like, I don't know, like what they're expecting at this point. She's getting trounced by the welfares. I'd like Jack to get a buff. I wouldn't hate it if Jack got a buff. We were talking about that the other day. They could fix Jackson P. Well, I think it's the worst because it's the one that spooked them. Yeah. And that's like, don't get me wrong, right? But I see it all the time. Anytime Buntoria gets brought up, people are like, no, she's the worst. Like, I literally, I made that post today saying like, please, Mr. Two, buffer, right? And it's great because I've been enjoying the community's interaction with it for the most part. But I have had people go in there and be like, no, she's terrible. And I'm like, at that point, like, that you're saying she needs a buff. Like, I don't know. Some people just are haters. That's all it really is. And Bunny is great. Hello, Kitsune. How's it going? Wait, really? She didn't clear? Wait, hold on. Am I in the wrong one? Nani? How did I end up in this one? No, yeah, okay, sorry, that was the mid-wave. How the f did she not clear that? What the shit? Oh, I didn't have any buffs. Okay. Yeah, I'm using a really crap C right now here too. So let's do one of these. Oh yeah, no. So I see people say that Arthur's supposed to be stronger than Arturia. I believe that is normally just people are getting really specific about the fact that he has seals. And usually people that say that are unaware that Excalibur has seals in both of its forms. Today isn't your day. It really isn't. I think Bunturia ruler class hard carries her somewhat. Oh yeah, 100%. Wow. I'm doing all sorts of greatness today. Do I have anything on the back line? No, not that. There we go. Come here, you. There we go. What are you hoping for JP's second summer banner? Oh, there's plenty of units. I would like to see Lulter, Drake, Sanzang, Medusa, I don't know, MHXA. I'm like blanking right now. Bodica. I would love to see Bodica. I'm so hyped for Black Myth Wukong. I like from what I've seen of it, it looks really good, but I'm gonna say this. I'm waiting on actual reviews of the game because it's the studio's first game, and initial impressions that I heard, I think from was it one of the was it Summer Game Showcase or something where they had it, people were saying that it was more of less Souls like and more just generic like hack and slash action. So that at least had me going huh? I don't know, right? Yeah, see, I'm literally using a a charge C here. Supposed to go fast is going slower because of it. B would it be? Still hoping someday we get Summer Medea. I wouldn't hate Summer Medea. I think she definitely could use her time in the sun. More like DMC 5. Yeah, maybe, right? I have no idea in that regard. Wasn't there any GSSR featuring Draco and Jalter on JP? But is Jalter not in the GSSR? Thought she was. The final teaser dropped today. Yeah, I don't put much stock in teaser trailers at this point. I need to see the actual gameplay of it, right? But even then, she's too old. Oh, I got you. Yeah, sorry, I forgot it was literally just the most recent ones. Yeah, and Draco got kicked out again. But to be fair, that's kind of how they have been doing it. I'm not sure what their logic is behind it. Like, whether or not Nasu's trying to sit there and, like, bullshit us and say there's a lore reason, or whether or not, like, it's just the devs being scummy and trying to, like, keep copies from us. I think Summer Olga is coming. I don't. And the only reason I don't is because so I've said this numerous times before and been wrong, but out of all of them, I believe this one will be right. There is a clear path of, like, progression for Olga and her story and everything that we're doing with her for right now. So I don't think you're gonna see her like you might see her in a summer event, but I don't think you're gonna actually like have her as a unit until, like, that wraps up. And that, to be fair, that was also talked about in Famitsu. Not like the possibility of her having her as a unit, but, like, literally the fights that have happened on JP. But is someone saying Rider Alter's bad? I mean, I would like Rider Alter to get a buff, but the buff that I would like her to get is more of like, hey, I'd like her to get, like, some charge or something. Just to make her a little bit more consistent. Because, like, her damage has always been good. That has never really, like, well, sorry, let me restate that. That has never been disputed by anybody that actually understands the way damage works in this game. Have I reviewed the Famitsu interview on stream? No, not yet, because I'm going to do a summary from Trubs' translation. But that will be coming in a couple days here. I wonder now with the second beast if we'll now get them in GSSR. No, I mean, like, it seems like not, because they didn't put Draco in, even in spite of her having a second banner. So, like, I think it's really weird. I don't really know why they do that. It just feels to me like they're trying desperately to, like, kind of keep a lid on that unit for some odd reason, but it is what it is. Had my first time trying to explain the yeah, really difficult to explain, right? Like not in the sense of, like, Artoria is easy to explain. It's difficult to explain why it's not Artoria. You have to, like, sit there and be like, I don't know, it's because Nasu wants it. There's no actual justification for it. Do you think they can buff Nightingale skill 2 more numbers and make targetable on an ally? They can definitely buff Nightingale. Nightingale absolutely needs something. Because, you know, I know people that have used Nightingale for, like, challenge content that thinks that like, oh, well, she's still really good. And I'm like, I'll give you, like, the fact that she is still usable. Because, again, I don't think any unit in the game at this point is, like, actually unusable. It's just that you're kind of gimping yourself by taking her, right? It's the same thing as, like, hey, I'm going to take Caligula to a node and, like, kit the hell out of the node specifically for Caligula's case. You can do that and you can make Caligula pop off. But is Caligula going to be your best option for that? Odds are no. Pack Dragon, thank you for the prime. Chat, can we get some love to our newest sub to the channel? Welcome and enjoy your new emotes. Cuckoo Can Summer? I would love Cuckoo Summer. I don't know if it's, like, too soon for it, though, or not. Like, we'll see, right? Gale would be nice if I didn't already have Merlin. Gale would be really nice for a lot of scenarios where the only solution was to actually, like, debilitate the enemy rather than protect yourself. But the devs don't really seem to do that too much anymore. And even, like, buff stripping, which used to be the real bane of a lot of comps, they either just don't employ buff strip or you have the capacity to stop them from buff stripping you. Now that we have buff removal resistance. So the fact that like they've basically given the players everything that they possibly need to stop the devs from screwing with them, which is great. It's one of the things I really do like. Bro said no servant is unusable when Phantom of the Opera exists. Crazy. Yep. I got a friend named Ventos. You should go watch him. You should go watch him if you think Phantom's unusable. I think they should just give Nightingale a targetable 50% battery. I mean, they could. That would be the lazy, like, uninspired way of doing something, though. Like, I'm still a big proponent of we should probably have units that are distinct and, like, not every unit is just cookie cutter the same as everyone else, right? I think if we do it that way, the game is more interesting and the game has more nuance to it. But if we just make everybody like the same like formula, it's gonna end up like homogenizing things and making it boring. He killed Fluffy with a phantom. Yep. Is Ishtar Archer worth rolling? No, she's terrible. You should never, ever, 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 ever consider her. Yeah, Ishtar's fantastic. She's still really good. I know a lot of people that are like chomping at the bit for her to get a buff, but she's still really like damage-wise is fairly solid. The real problem that she's having at the current moment is that Gil just refuses to stay down. But there's no real issue in her kit. It's not like Seal from Lost Belt 7 or something? What do you mean? Perfect moment for ads to kick in, of course. Wait, are you saying chat only heard me say no? Excellent. If you belong to the Church of Eris, you should not roll. Listen, I've heard that that's blasphemy from people that just like Ren, right? I'm gonna be real with y'all. It's the same. I find altar only people to be extremely weird. Like people that are like, oh, I don't like the original. I only like the altar. And I'm like, okay, cool, because this is just this if she were angry. That's it. That's usually the small difference between it. So it's like saying I don't like my wife unless she's angry at me. But I do understand in the case of Erish and Rin and Ishtar that it's like, okay, well, they're not necessarily altars. They're more like two halves of the same coin. I can at least understand how maybe you like one personality but don't like the other. I don't know. I still find it really weird. Something like, to me, I feel like if you like one of them, you should probably still like the other to some degree. But I do feel like people just want to be edgy sometimes. Oh, Madman Moby, they give her the prime as well. They give her the 2 years. Chat, can we get some love for the 2-year anniversary here? All right, we have spent everything down. Now let us pick it or ticket. Oh, no. Hold on. You give me that. Uh-oh. 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 All right, chat. This is a really hard choice. I think out of all of these, there's only one correct choice. I can't even debate you guys. We know you're picking Regend. Yes, I am picking the legendary King Arthur. Once you've exchanged, you cannot switch your selection, even if you have a total of 6 copies or more of the same servant. The unregistered spirit origin will not be obtained unless the conditions are fulfilled. You will obtain servant coins once you receive the servant from the present box. Yep. No, we want coup. No, we don't. Oh, my inventory is full. I cannot receive my present. Come on, chat. If for no other reason than getting this craft essence. If for no other reason. Okay? And these Cs are actually, like, not terrible. They're not the best, but hey, it's 10% for specifically FSN servants. Time to fuck up all the bitches? What? I woo. Guess we'll throw some more embers into you. Actually, I probably needed 1 ember there. I still haven't gotten to Herc to this day because I obviously also picked Seba. You know, I've seen a lot of people, like, I've told people before that Herc is kind of overrated. Not in the sense that, like, he's bad, but in the sense that the community acts like you have to have Herc. And I'm like, you really don't. Especially, like, so many people will champion for Herc because, like, oh, well, early in the game, Herc's an amazing soloer and he can carry you. And I'm like, you're right. Your friend's Herc is an amazing solo carry earlier in the game. Your Herc is not. Your Herc sucks dick. But, like, I get it, right? Like, I understand why people say that. And I do think, especially now, at least with, like, pure prisms in the game, it's a lot easier to, like, get Herc online than it used to be in the past. So in that regard, I think he's a lot better in like terms of early account recommendation than he used to be. But yeah, like, I gotta be real with y'all. Once you get an established account, you basically just don't have to ever, like, touch Herc. Herc is a great backline protection unit or a solo artist for you. But outside of those two things, like, you'll often find that if you're just, like, if you've got, you know, numerous options, you don't have to ever even consider Herc. My Herc's hard as nails. You watch your mouth, Cat. I'm sorry. Like, I'm not trying to say that he's bad. He's absolutely not. He's a fantastic unit. I'm just trying to clarify the fact that, like, the community will often sit there and act like you have to have Herc. And I'm like, no, you don't. You absolutely don't. You do need him? No, you don't. That's what I'm trying to tell you guys. You don't need Herc. He is not a required character. Okay, don't. I was gonna say. I was like, yeah, no, and that's the only reason why, right? Like, I will always challenge people trying to, like, sit here and say, like, oh, you have to have X or Y. I think the only exception, and you guys know, like, this is the exception that I usually try to make for people, is usually the support servants. And even with them, it's mostly because the whole, like, concept of having 2 of them, right? that makes it very difficult to actually perform certain strategies unless you have them. And those strategies are somewhat pervasive in the game at the moment. So, like, until that sort of thing changes, yeah, that's still going to be my recommendation for, like, the quote unquote gotta have. And I still don't even think you have to have that. It's just, I will always attach a warning to, hey, if you don't roll the support units, you may be making your life worse. Yeah, there are plenty of, like, replacements for her. I will stand here and listen to this blasphemy against the strongest in the world. It is no knock against Herc. It is more me trying to tell people that, like, their terminology on Herc is completely wrong, right? Honestly, in a new account, you want, I assume you're saying Nito. Yeah, Nito is really fantastic. I'd rather use Pen. I mean, Pen's fine for offense. The only issue with Pen is she's, you know, got nothing protection-wise. What buff do I think Summer Jalter can get? I don't think they'll buff Summer Jalter. Like, and I'm not saying that just to be combative. I'm literally saying I do not think they will buff Summer Jalter because Summer Jalter is already insanely powerful for what she is. She's a 20% charging single target berserker that does have at least a dodge per turn. And she can, you know, sit there and like fill in as a just go-to damage dealer, especially nowadays now that she's available in the Evocation Festival on JP. You do realize Ilya will find you in a park somewhere in Florida right now, Cad. Like I said, I don't want anyone to think that it's like, oh, Cad hates Herc, Cad's shitting on Herc. No, I'm more shitting on the people that are saying that Herc is a requirement. Because that's people basically turning their brain off and saying like, oh, just use Herc. And I'm like, no, it's actually usually not the best recommendation I can give you. And like, again, y'all know, like early account, a lot of players are going to sit there and they're going to be like, oh, hey, I'm just going to take like Arjuna Alter. I'm just going to take like Morgan Le Fay. I'm just going to end up basically taking all these other characters and using them, you know, to basically solo a lot of stuff for me while I get the rest of my account online. Herc is really good in challenge content, but you do have to develop him for him to get to that point. And part of that development does include Bond 10 to get his craft essence. Is there any real point to farming high tier training grounds? I mean, sure, right? Like it's just going to depend on whether or not you actually need the statues and the skill gems. They're actually kind of nice in that for efficiency, but you know, if you're a more veteran account, odds are you don't need that. I got from the beginning of the game to LB 6+ without Herc. I just got him now in the banner and I'm very happy. Yeah, no, that's perfectly fine. Like getting a Herc and being able to backline him or being able to just have him as an option is always solid. But yeah, it's like you said, you were able to get all the way through pretty much all the content without him. So that's kind of proof right there that's like, yes, you don't have to have Herc. Herc is a necessity like air. You need Herc to live. Lies. Now imagine the devs buffing Herc and giving him a 30% battery. Oh no, Herc's gonna get buffed, chat. You heard it here first. You want to know how Herc's gonna get buffed? Herc is gonna get buffed with whatever change they make to Bond Seas. Whatever change that gets made, Herc will be the beneficiary of it. Keep coping? That's not cope when the devs talk about it. The only super support was waiver. So NP2 Herc really helped me until the end of 1.5. Yeah, no, I think like back in the day, like early game FGO, Herc really was one of the more solid options for people. But again, I think like even then, for like an early account, no, odds are like people would sit there and be like, oh, he's great. He's who you should start the game with. He's going to carry you. And I'm like, no, he's not. Not early game. Especially like back then, we didn't have things like pure prisms and stuff in order to be able to like actually get them up and online. So it was like, yeah, I mean, you could try, but odds are you were not going to be like, wait, why is it still saying that I'm full? Did I guess I literally didn't spend enough embers here. Good lord. It's also funny, Cad, that you said you'd fix the Scander with 20% battery and the next day he gets 30%. No, remember what I said though, right? I said give him 20% if you want to make him balanced. They did not do that. This Skandar is doing really solid because of that upgrade. I think the more surprising thing to me beyond anything else is simply the fact that they not only did that, but then they proceeded to give him literally like a unique niche that is the ability to provide defense pierce to the party. I'm like, what the hell? That's actually insane. I can't believe they did that. Hot comment. Fergus gets any battery, he's better than Herc. That is a hot comment. Cad, people just don't understand. Just use Savior of France Kojiro. That's true. Chat wishes they were as legendary. Corner class all giving the side eye. Mm-hmm. Cad, what will be the response from the community if the welfare from the summer event doesn't get enough coins to max them out? You know, this is really interesting because I hadn't even thought about the welfare, right? Like, because in my mind, I was low-key thinking that it was going to be Erish as the welfare this year. So, like, who's the welfare? I don't know. Like, I'm actually kind of like, I wonder who it will be. So, but yeah, like humoring that thought, what will the reaction from the community be if not all the coins are there? Well, I'm going to go ahead and say this. So they never do give you all the coins. Remember, chat, 180 of the coins that you have to get out of what used to be the total of 660 came from Bond. So that meant that instead they only ever gave you 480 coins in the shop. So expect the same deal here. Now that the total is technically 900, expect that instead you're only going to be given like 720. But yeah, what if the number is not this and it's lower? What will the community's reaction be? Well, it won't be good. It will certainly be a bad one. It will certainly not be a favorable reaction. Hello, Fox. How's it going? Imagine it's another Ishtar. I mean, that's actually not that crazy given the fact of what the Famitsu cover is, right? Be cool if they double or triple the number of coins you get from Bond. I just don't want the solution to be Bond because Bond takes forever. And that will just further push people into what I will call the Bond meta. When is Evocation coming to NA? I'm trying to remember when we had the first one. It's still a ways. I guess not till next year. Yes, Summer Spishtar? Perhaps. All right, hold on, chat. What else did I have to do with you guys tonight? Ah, yes. Okay. Okay.
Oh, yeah, now I know the website's just like going ape shit when it's trying to generate that. Spartacus. I always put it with an I. Okay, chat, this is gonna take me a minute. I can't just type in Walter. Lancer, no, sorry, it's our Artoria Pendragon. There we go. El Terrible. I think at this point, chat's beginning to get concerned. Chat's really beginning to like try and figure some of this out. Can I type in Cinderella? Will it give me her? I don't think it will. Oh my god, it actually did. Holy crap. Venom's got to get better with these nicknames, by the way.
You there yet, chat? Of course, Jonta won't give it to me. Oh, god damn it. Give me the disambiguation. Aurelia pieced out? I don't blame her. All right, chat. All right. Oh, wait, hold on. Hold on, chat. I gotta do another one. Um. Okay, let's go back to the beginning. Hope you're well, Cat. Had a great week. Summer Nito to 120. Nice. Buff on JP and a week off work feels good, man. Oh, you want to trade me that week off work? I would love it. Cat explains the entire FGO roster. No, just like 33 different units. Okay. This is just getting funny to me at this point. Let me double check something here real fast. Oh. And thank you for the 30 lemonade. Appreciate it, my man. Yeah, I'm just waiting on Avalon to check one last thing for me. Also, Avalon, did you send me the strengthening stuff? Checking. Yeah. Well, sent me one of them. That works? Really? How does it work? And which one? All right, chat, I've got a new addition. Yeah, that I figured, Evelyn. That's interesting. Okay. Ugh. I just found him bothering adding borders to random units. Wait, what do you mean? Oh. Um. Thinking about like King Protea? Yeah, I think it's just story related stuff. Medieval-esque clothing with modern aviator shades explained in your lore. Yes, actually. Hello, Valoria. How's it going? I'm just getting ready to start doing a video here, actually. Okay. Don't think about it. Yeah. I think your banner ends tomorrow night, both before the buff. Wait, for who? I kind of hope the ruler buff is Mellison. I can almost guarantee you the ruler buff won't be Mellison. And I'm gonna be real with y'all. If the ruler buff is Mellison, I think I'll just maul. Yang, I got you, yeah. I'm still surprised they didn't do Yang with this upgrade and that it was Abby instead. But okay, I think we are good to start. So, let me pull something up here on the side just so that I have talking points. Because chat, how do I say this? Okay, here, let's begin. Hey guys, my name's Khadroth, and today I'm going to be talking to you about the fifth append. Now, a lot's already been said about the fifth append and how a lot of people feel like it's essential, and a lot of people are upset because, the devs ended up giving us these two new append skills without giving us any sort of coin fix. I still maintain that the issue is fundamentally that there's still no coin fix rather than them adding more stuff to the append system. but I totally understand why people are upset. I'm just going to tell you, don't necessarily get upset at the 5th append itself, because it certainly is a interesting one. Obviously, the 4th append is very good as well. It's just going to be adding crit damage to any of your units if you manage to get it. It's going to be really good in scenarios where you have a unit that specializes in soloing, or again, just more challenge-oriented content. But we do also have stuff like class score at this point on JP that does allow for it. So the purpose of this video is primarily going to be focusing on that 5th append and where it's actually useful. So needless to say, there are some blanket statements that I kind of have to make before we talk about this. I'm going to have basically 33 different units that we're going to end up talking with you guys about, because they're going to be the units that I think actually it makes a big difference for. Other than those units, certainly any unit can benefit from the 5th append, but it's going to depend entirely on how long you see yourself using them in terms of content. In terms of general purpose farming, not every unit's necessarily going to be able to take advantage of the 5th append. There are certain units that will take more advantage than others, and that's kind of what we're going to focus on here today. Primarily units that have their charging situations changed. And what do I mean by that? I mean, it's going to either allow them to have access to a different composition for party-wise, more than they already had, or it's going to allow them a different starting charge standpoint. One of those two things kind of needs to be true in order for it to actually make a big enough difference for us to really consider. Otherwise, again, we do have general purpose notes to denote, like, again, just taking units into challenge content. Obviously, the 5th append is going to reduce your cooldowns for the first time that you use it, so it is what it is. Let's go ahead and let's actually start out by looking at what the 5th append is here. So you guys can see it's called skill reloading, and it's going to reduce the cooldown of the skill by 1 after activation for n times. Now, don't get confused on this, because there is a note here that says once per skill. So that means that you will not be able to get a cooldown reduction multiple times on the same skill from this append. It will only be once for each of your 3 skills. So just keep that in mind and you'll be good. What leveling the append will do is it will control the number of times this can actually come into play. So basically, will it come into play on only a singular skill, or maybe 2 of your skills, or perhaps all 3? Still, you can only do it the 1 time per, so just keep that again in your head for how this is going to happen. What I am going to say is not every unit is going to need the 5th append all the way leveled up. Certainly not every unit's going to need it unlocked even, but when we start considering units on who we're going to unlock it on, we do obviously have a couple rules that we need to follow. And I'm going to kind of start out by saying that there may or may not be an exception to each of these rules. The units in the game at this point are extremely diverse. We have over 400 units, so it's absolutely possible that any given unit might be the exception to this rule. But I did try to come up with a set that I felt like would actually do a good job of explaining this to you. So to start out with, units where the 5th append will be quite solid. Basically, anyone with a 7-turn charge cooldown can work with double Koyanskaya now, because this cooldown reduction will allow it to be 6 turns instead. Anyone with a 5-turn charge cooldown of 30% or more can now also work with a single Koyanskaya. It's not always going to be better, though, because it does depend on the unit and kind of what their strengths were. Also, any 20% unit that has a 5-turn charge cooldown or less can now start from 60% starting charge. So this does move the bar in that regard. It may also be a case where if we're kind of talking about that, like, so to start from 60%, you would need the mana loading as well. So you would end up needing 2 appends. So that may be not an option for you. But you can also consider that this would allow them to start then instead with a non-MLBK scope, something that may be really nice. And you might be thinking, well, I could already do that if I had the mana loading. And you'd be right. But it might also allow you to not have to use the mana loading on that unit. That is to say, having the 5th Append might replace your need for mana loading. I will say, with that sort of thing in mind, we certainly have to consider the possibility of other compositions. Having mana loading is just naturally nice in a lot of scenarios, particularly in using with some other sort of charge craft essence, maybe something like a 50% CE. Having your mana loading maxed out means you're already at 70% charge. So if you have some sort of overflow charge like 30%, boom, there you go, you're at an MP without even any other consideration there. So mana loading has always had a lot of strength for that. But with some of these units, you might find that you actually prefer the 5th Append, just depending on their situation. So now for the next rule here. Anyone with a cooldown reduction already in their kit can potentially use this and get great benefit from that. This is not restricted to just Buster units. Buster units are primarily going to end up being some of the biggest beneficiaries of this 5th Append skill, but obviously other units like Arts and Quick do have cooldown reduction built into their kits, and depending on what those kits are, they may actually be really useful. Now, most of them, in their cases, it's not going to change the charge situation. Usually who it's going to impact in that regard are going to be the Buster units. That's why we're going to be focusing on the Buster units here. But do keep in mind that there are certainly other Arts and Quick units that will end up coming into play. I will have one or two examples for you at the end, just to kind of give you guys an idea of how to think about that. Anyone challenge-oriented, obviously, can get back to their skills for the first time even faster. So if you've got a unit that you really like taking into solos, or maybe just, again, boss battles and stuff like that, having the capacity to get back to their, first cooldown of skills even faster is obviously going to be of benefit to you. So in that regard, yes, the 5th Append is definitely worthy of your consideration. We did also mention the 4th Append, which, as we denoted earlier, does increase crit damage, so that may be another one you'd want to consider, alongside even things like the extra attack finesse in those scenarios, or maybe even mana loading. So it is what it is. Obviously, you're going to have to make some hard choices depending on the way servant coins shake out in the future. But I'm just kind of mentioning that so that everybody kind of knows, yes, again, down the stretch, once you get longer than 3 turns, all of a sudden, having this 5th Append can be useful to you. But there is a point at which, obviously, after you've gotten back to that first cooldown of skills, the 5th Append is then useless at that point because you only get the singular use of it per skill. So at that point, again, the longer a fight goes on, the less value something like it's going to have. Whereas if it's a shorter challenge scenario where you're longer than 3 turns, but maybe not, say, longer than like 10, all of a sudden you're in a really sweet spot for the 5th Append. All right, so for the next one here, now we can start talking about steroids. So basically, steroids are the term that I use for any sort of damage increasing skill that a unit might have. Anyone with a 7-turn cooldown steroid can now double up in a double Koyanskaya comp, particularly units that couldn't do it before without using something like, say, Atlas. Anyone with a 6-turn cooldown steroid can now use their skills on turns 1 and 2, or turns 2 and 3, depending on how you want to structure the skill usage. Anyone with a 5-turn cooldown on a steroid can now potentially double pop it, but this is sort of weird, and I'm going to say you're not going to find very many applications of it, because the problem, in order to be able to double pop it, is usually going to require Koyanskaya intervention. And at that point, if we're maybe, say, popping double Koyanskaya, at that point you've ended up with, 250% charges. So you can't use any skill at that point then that's also a charge skill without it being wasteful. And usually in a lot of the comps where we do end up popping those skills is usually turn 2. So double popping maybe, say, like a 1-turn steroid in turn 2, I mean, it'd be great for the second wave if you needed more damage there, but it wouldn't be good for the third wave. So that's something that we have to consider as well, that may not be actually efficient for us. Anyone with a 4-turn cooldown on steroids can now use their skills on turns 1 and 2, or turns 2 and 3, basically with a single Koyanskaya. Or you don't need her at all if you just want to double it up on turns 1 and 3. So consider that that's also a possibility. Any unit under 3 turns, at this point, you're starting to get really, really low, and you already could double pop their skill in a conventional 3 turn. So now we're considering the possibility of uptime and just how many turns we can get it active. So there's no real rule pertaining to that because skills under 3 turns or less basically end up being extremely unique in how they function. Buster units as well that get charge per enemy hit do not seem to gain the benefit in a conventional farming setup without also adding Summer Kuro to the mix. That is to say, using the 5th Append isn't really going to get you a whole lot of benefit with units like Salter and normal Kiyohime. Because in both those cases, they do now have charge per enemy that they do hit with their skill, but at the end of the day, it doesn't really help them out unless they include someone like Summer Kuro, just due to the way the cooldowns and the charge end up working. We'll see in the future if maybe that sort of thing changes, but it is definitely interesting to see. So now with that in mind, we can talk to you about our first example. Now, Ozzy is actually not someone that's going to be a huge beneficiary of this skill. The reason I have Ozzy on the screen right now is to show you that Ozzy is probably the prototype of where they got some of this from. For those of you guys that are unfamiliar, Ozzy is somebody that has had a couple buffs now at this point. He's in a really good spot damage-wise on JP. His third skill has always been Party Charge by 20%, but it's on a 6-turn cooldown. 20% charges on a 6-turn cooldown. In the conventional Koyanskaya setup, there was really nothing we could do for that. So usually that required us to be able to run what we like to call the OOK comp, the double Oberon Koyanskaya comp, to make this unit 3-turn. But Ozzy ends up being a unique example, and part of the reason for this is because his NP now, after its interlude, reduces his own skill cooldowns by 1. So he's already kind of had this capability to be the prototype for what a lot of the 20% charges start to look at. That is to say, if we started to break Ozzy's kit down and kind of talk about how it works here, we can easily think about his possibility to be able to double up on things. So, for instance, in Ozzy's case, as we've already denoted, he is going to be somebody that has that 20% charge. So right here, we can start him out with 20% charge. We know, even though it is a 6-turn cooldown, that Ozzy's going to be able to fire off, let's say we're 3-turning with him, 2 NPs. So he's going to reduce his cooldown 2 more times. He's also going to go through 2 waves, so he's going to lose 2 cooldown charges from that as well. So in a 6-turn cooldown, Ozzy would already be at 2 turns by the final wave. So even including a single Koyanskaya into this comp means that Ozzy gets his 20% charge back on wave 3. So now we start to consider, okay, so how do we make this work? What's the best possible charge scenario? I like to do this solve for 300% charge mechanic here on screen that you guys see, where each one of these brackets is a turn and each one we need to get to 100%. That's how we know if we'll be able to 3-turn. So in Ozzy's case, let's try using a single Koyanskaya and double Oberon, for instance. So in that regard, let's go ahead and use a Koyanskaya charge skill here in turn 2. We're also going to use one of the Oberon 50% charge skills here in turn 2 as well. That's going to be 100% charge, so wave 2 is solved. With wave 3 now, let's see if we can solve that, and we know that we have at least one more Oberon 50% charge. We do have to be a little bit careful because Oberon does drain charge after the turn after he uses a 50% charge, but in the case of Ozzy, he's a Buster unit. He doesn't have any refund after his NP, so it's just going to occur when he has 0 charge anyways, so there's no downside to using Oberon's charge in turn 2. Whereas with other units, there might be. But in Ozzy's case, no, we don't have that, so we went ahead and we popped both the Oberon charges now, and he's at 70% here. Now, we do still have 2 Oberon 20% charges, and we can actually utilize them in the 3rd wave, allowing us the possibility to get to actually 110% charge here, so we're overkill. We are now solid. What does that mean? Well, that means that Ozzy has totally solved, and now we just go back and look at the front wave here the first turn and determine kind of what we're left with. The only thing that we're left with is actually an append from Ozzy. So we can have the mana loading and max that out, and then that would allow Ozzy to start from a 60% charge standpoint. Or looking at this another way, we don't have to have the mana loading, and instead we start him at 80% with something like a non-MLB K-scope. Either way, this does allow us the possibility now to 3-turn. Now this is all without using the 5th append, but this is how your 20% chargers are going to work now with the 5th append in play. So we're going to go ahead and start to talk about some of the other units just to kind of let you see that Ozzy may have been that sort of blueprint for where we were headed. So right off the bat here, we've got Ace. And Ace is a unit that a lot of people have talked about just for how strong she is. She's got a very unconventional kit, and having the 5th append is actually going to allow her, again, to get, take advantage of that nice cooldown reduction, particularly on this first skill. It is her 50% charge skill, so this will allow it to instead become a 6-turn cooldown instead of 7. This now means that we can operate Ace basically with double Koyenskaya and Oberon from a Black Grail looping standpoint. That's going to really improve Ace's numbers, because just shaving that one cooldown on this 50% charge skill ended up making all the difference. Ace could already Black Grail loop, but she had to use double Oberon before this point for this to work. Another unit here that we're going to see is going to end up being Arcuid. She is very much the exact same type of unit. She's a unit that we really don't care too much about the mana loading on. And the reason why is because we already end up having a 7-turn, 100% charge cooldown. We're going to be able to reduce this as well to 6 turns with the 5th append, meaning that now literally Arcuid is going to be able to operate with double Koyenskaya and Oberon. Before, she had to do weird things like use the Atlas Academy Mystic Code and forsake someone like Oberon, but now, or again, maybe do like sort of a multi-damage dealer type of setup to really be able to take advantage of it. But now she's going to be able to just operate in the conventional comp, and that's going to actually really improve her numbers. Furthermore, we can also point out that her first skill is a 6-turn cooldown here, so you will potentially be able to get this on turns 1 and 2, or potentially better yet, turns 2 and 3, allowing you at least the capacity to shift the damage more to waves that you would want. From there, we end up with someone like Spartacus. Now, Spartacus is sort of like poor man's Arjuna Alter. But for a long time, he's been plagued by the fact that his charge skill here is 7-turn cooldown. So he hasn't really had the capacity to work with double Koyenskaya either. But same deal here, he's now going to have the capacity as long as you get that and get his mana loading maxed out. Thankfully, he is a, 1-star berserker at this point, so you're going to have the capacity to actually be able to do this on him. But it is an interesting thing, obviously, as we start to get to units where servant coins are much more of a commodity and we don't necessarily have them to spare. But yes, now Spartacus will also be able to function in a double Koyenskaya setup. Erish is another really, really interesting one. She has now transformed from somebody that used to deal not so great damage to all of a sudden she gets her NP interlude. She starts being able to really pop off now in comparison to a lot of her other peers. Still not quite, at Mellison numbers or anything like that. But now we have a truly unique situation. You see, in the end, we ended up getting a buff to not only Erish's NP, but also her first skill. And this reduces her own skill cooldowns by 1. This is going to allow Erish to Black Grail loop now, as you're going to have the capacity to basically be able to include enough charge in there to really allow her to fire off. So now she's going to actually be able to do very solid damage numbers. This is a really sort of come from behind tale for a unit that did not have a lot of firepower and had always been more of a challenge oriented unit. So now all of a sudden, Erish has a lot more capability due to the way that all of this works. And the big reason why is, again, the reduction to this charge skill that she has, the steroid, is now going to go on a 5-turn cooldown instead of being 6. So it's going to make her one of the only 50% charging 5-turn cooldown units in the game. Same thing is going to be true of Takeda Shingen. He also is going to be a benefit, as he's going to be able to Black Grail loop now for the same reason. He already had a targetable cooldown reduction in his kit, and he basically as well ended up having 50% charge on a 6-turn cooldown. So it is the exact same sort of scenario in which he's going to be able to do it, just like Erish. And that's going to allow for a lot more firepower for someone like Shingen. Someone where, when he first came out, maybe seemed a little bit underwhelming to a lot of players, is now turning into a Black Grail looper, assuming you do utilize that 5th append. Someone like San Zhang as well is another unit that has a 7-turn charge skill. She only has 80% charge here, but this is going to allow her to pop it on turns 1 and 3, basically, in a double Koyanskaya setup. Now, obviously, you can use Oberon, and you can start out with something like an Append on the first wave, and you'd be solid. But this also means that any 20% charger with her mana loading Append would also work here in this scenario. So double Koyanskaya X, I don't know, even someone like, say, Helena, even someone like, say, Shakespeare, or even someone like Merlin could all work with San Zhang now in this scenario. So it's definitely very, very interesting that it's going to allow for that sort of scenario without having to utilize something like Atlas. Cersei also just going to be a very nice beneficiary, as she has a 7-turn cooldown on hers. She'll now just be able to work with flat out double Koyan. You won't need anything else for her to be able to operate. So she will be in, I'm going to say, a much speedier composition than she used to be before. Maybe not necessarily better for damage, but certainly better in that regard. This would also let you, work in someone with a plug suit like Oberon and let you really boost the damage in that regard. So you're not relegated again to anything like Atlas. BB Summer is going to be another really, really interesting one for the exact same reason. She also has a 50% charge skill, but it's on a 7-turn cooldown. So utilizing this will now allow her to work in a double Koyanskaya setup, and again, basically be able to really pop off because of that. She'll now be able to start with much better craft essence situations, and again, have just an all-around good time being able to loop. Next up, we're going to get to the first of our really crazy revelations. So you guys remember we were just talking about Ozzy. The same thing is going to be true of, yes, even someone like Summer Kyo. You're now going to be able to 3-turn with her from a starting charge standpoint of 60% if you manage to also have her mana loading, or even 80% if you don't. So in that regard, again, this may allow you to stretch damage if you have a really nice 60% starting charge CE, something that actually does have damage modifiers attached to it. So again, something like Summer Olympian, or again, Partake with the King. If you manage to have any of these older CEs, or even some of the newer anniversary CEs that are 60% when they're MLB, plus other effects, you might be able to actually utilize this to squeeze out more damage out of your units. Same thing with Dobrynya. She's also going to be able to have the same effect, as she will be able to do the exact same thing here. She's another one of our 20% charging units that has the charge skill on a 5-turn cooldown. So as a result, we have the capacity to run a single Koyanskaya setup here. So basically that means we start out again with the 20% charge. We can do a 20% append if we choose and start out with 60% there. From there, we do a single Oberon 50% charge, go ahead, do another Oberon 50% charge here, and then basically because we will have gotten the cooldown back by wave 3, we also have a 20% again from Dobrynya, and then the 2 Oberon 20% here to make this work. So maybe not going to be great for something like wave 2 damage, but it is obviously a possibility. Obviously, you can also try to do things like start out and maybe flip-flop how you're handling it with, say, delaying the Koyenskaya buffs till turn 3, but that's also going to be hairy, so it's totally up to you to determine how you want to structure things and what you think you can get away with. But again, Dobrynya also having that same sort of setup with 20% charge on a 5-turn cooldown. Next up here, we end up with Lalter. Lalter is also going to be very much cut from the same cloth. She will also have a 20% charge skill on a 5-turn cooldown. And it's also her 3 times 3 turns buster up, so it will at least allow her that capacity to get back without even using double Koyenskaya. Definitely an interesting thing when we start to consider that at play. Passion Lip is also another one here that we're going to basically be able to function with on another 20% charge on a 5-turn cooldown. So again, this means we can start at 60% should we need. And then we also now go to Fujino. Fujino is going to be another interesting one because again, as you guys can see, she has gotten quite a bit of buffing here at this point in time, but certainly she does at least have the charge on her second skill. And this is now a 30% charge on a 5-turn cooldown. So now we can talk about the fact that 30% chargers with 5-turn cooldowns are in another unique scenario. So let's talk about that here real quick. So in this sort of scenario, we can now work with a singular Koyenskaya. This is going to allow double Oberon, and it's going to allow us, again, another weird sort of scenario. So let's go ahead and pop the 30% charge skill on turn 1. We've already talked about how with the 20% charge skills on a 5-turn cooldown, a single Koyenskaya is going to let us get back with the 5th append by the 3rd turn. So now we have that again on turn 3. Well, a single Oberon is going to complete that, so we can just go ahead and mark that in and say that that's good. From there, we also can manage to have a 50% charge from a Koyenskaya and a 50% charge from the other Oberon, which means we have 20% charge from the first Oberon still remaining. Which also then means that we can have the mana loading append still. Which now means that any 30% charger with a 5-turn cooldown can start from 30% charge. That's kind of nuts because that's the old bar that a lot of 50% chargers were at. It gets even more interesting though when we start to consider the fact that you don't have to have this mana loading append. So now, by virtue of getting the 5th append, you've freed up your 30% chargers from having mana loading. If they're a 5-turn cooldown or less. That can definitely start to change things for certain units. As again, it sort of gives the same mana loading power almost to a 5th append. It does require you to have a specific composition, and like we did mention, you do want to consider the possibility in the future of maybe different comps not necessarily focused on 3-turning with the same unit. So again, a double damage dealer type of setup, or any sort of setup in which you're trying to utilize overflow charge to have a unit take out a wave, mana loading is still really strong for. But this does mean that the 5th append has sort of begun to attack mana loading's usefulness to a degree. And it is an interesting thing to denote that you can kind of kill 2 birds with 1 stone now by virtue of having the 5th append on certain units. Again, this will not work on any 30% charger that has a 6-turn cooldown, as you won't be able to get back with just a singular Koyenskaya, which means you will lose the capacity to have an extra 20% charge in the opening wave. So that is something to consider. This isn't going to work for every 30% charger, but it will work for quite a few. And if you thought Fujino was an interesting example of that, your next one here is Arjuna Alter, who also ends up having it on a 5-turn cooldown. So you guys can see this is definitely going to start making some interesting strides. Arjuna was often compared to Morgan Le Fay as somebody that basically ended up having a lot of damage, but didn't necessarily have some of the extra intangibles that Morgan had. One of those was Morgan being a 50% charger and her capacity to be able to start out from 30% charge. Oberon, though, does have that capacity, does confer that capacity now to Oberon if we have the 5th append and the mana loading. But again, it also potentially frees up Arjuna Alter from having the mana loading. So it is something to consider as to how you want to use your 5th append. And again, your servant coins in general. In this regard, and I'll probably say this again at the video, but this is probably why everybody should be happy that the devs are going to allow us to potentially change which appends we have unlocked. The fact that that system will be coming in the future might be beneficial to people that wish to change it around. And we can at least conjecture the possibility of, hey, maybe the devs actually allow us to change them on the fly, maybe with something like the command code removers or something like that. Maybe we can go back and forth from time to time at no real cost to us. But we'll just have to see whether or not the devs allow for something like that and how they implement the system. But it's still food for thought in that regard. Next up here, we've got another one, Ivan the Terrible, and he's also somebody that has 30% charge on a 5-turn cooldown. So Ivan's now going to be the exact same standpoint where getting the 5th append on him might preclude the need for you to have the mana loading on him, or if you do also have the mana loading, might allow you to start out from a 30% starting charge standpoint. Now again, I know where some of you are probably thinking, well, there's no real good 30% Cs in the game, and you're totally right, but this might allow us in, say, something like an event or a lotto where we maybe don't have MLB of a CE that has charge, to still be able to 3-turn from that standpoint. That being, that it's not an MLB at that point and it only is giving you 30%, all of a sudden now we have some 30% starting charge units that can potentially work due to the fact that they have that 5-turn cooldown and potentially the 5th append and the mana loading unlocked. Next up here, we've also got Mao Nobu. So again, this is another one where all of a sudden, be careful who you make fun of in high school, as Mao Nobu has come a long way, and definitely now, thanks to the upgrade to the 3rd skill, has 30% charge on a 5-turn cooldown. So Mao Nobu is going to be another one that's actually going to be able to start from a 30% starting charge standpoint. Semiramis is another very interesting one here, as she will also be another unit that has 30% charge on a 5-turn cooldown. Now I'm going to say, at least as of the current recording of this video, Semiramis has received no love basically from JP, so they really do have to do something for her in the damage department so that she gets a lot better, because right now you're honestly better off using certain welfares than using Semiramis. But hopefully in the future, this will prove a useful tip once they do buff Semiramis. Arthur is another interesting one, as he's also going to be another 20% charger with a 5-turn cooldown. This is going to then mean that Arthur can now use double Oberon with a single Koyanskaya to start out from a 60% starting charge standpoint. It's not a whole lot, but if you do manage to have the servant coins basically to unlock his mana loading and this, you can maybe squeeze a little bit more damage out of your Arthur now if you really like him, even in spite of the fact that he has also remained relatively unbuffed at the current point in time. Another interesting one here is that basically Cinderella has 30% charge, but she has it on a 4-turn cooldown, and there's no real benefit to it. That is to say, it may as well just be a 5-turn cooldown, because we can't structure this in any other way to actually gain the benefit. So she also is another unit now that can start out from 30% starting charge if you have the mana loading and the 5th append. But given the fact that she is a welfare, you should have the coins to be able to do this. So that is something to consider, that in the future, when they allow us to switch the appends around, that you will have the capacity to be able to get both the mana loading maxed out and unlock her 5th append in order to allow her that better starting charge standpoint. Next up here is going to be Canis. Canis is another unit just like Lalter that at this point in time has 20% charge on a 5-turn cooldown, so she will also be able to start from that 60% standpoint just like her competitor there. Liz Halloween is another really interesting one. Now, Liz has the really wonky upgrade to her first skill where she actually gets charged based off the number of enemies that have a buff on them, depending on how many buffs she does end up removing. So in that regard, that is something to consider, but more for challenge aspects, I'm not really going to talk too much about it because I don't think it's going to matter too much in the general purpose farming scheme of things. However, you guys can see she did also get an upgrade to her 3rd skill back in the day that did allow her 30% charge. Annoyingly though, the devs left it on a 7-turn cooldown. With her being yet another welfare unit, you should have the coins to spare. So this will actually allow, finally, Caster Ellie access to a double Koyanskaya system that she didn't have before. So she'll be a conventional 30% 3-turner with a double Koyanskaya and Oberon setup. And that should definitely help her out at least a little bit. Hijikata is going to be another one of our 5-turn cooldown charging guys, as he's got it 30% on a 5-turn cooldown. So he'll be another unit that now either doesn't require mana loading, or if you have it, can work basically from a 30% standpoint. Mecha Ellie is also another one of the 20% charging units, as they have it also on a 5-turn cooldown. So both versions of her will be able to now function from a 60% starting charge standpoint, with, again, her being a welfare. Lily is also another one cut from the same cloth, where again, you guys should have the coins to spare, and she will also have the 20% charge on a 5-turn cooldown, allowing you to function again from a 60% starting charge standpoint. So again, the reason I'm pointing out 60% starting charge is because you can get craft essences that do enhance damage at that point, more so than something like, say, K-Scope would allow for otherwise. Altera is another funny one, as for years she didn't have charge and the devs kept buffing her, and now she can basically just double up everything in her kit, but she's also another 30% charger basically that has it on a 5-turn cooldown. So she'll also be somebody else that can start from 30% if you have enough coins for both appends, or she can at least maybe forego the mana loading append, just depending. Now again, I'm not telling you guys not to get mana loading, I'm just saying that there is the possibility to kind of squeeze it out thanks to the 5th append's usefulness. Next up here, we have Janta. Janta's going to be the same thing as Canis and Lalter. She's got 20% charge on a 5-turn cooldown, so with just a single Koyanskaya, she'll have the capacity to be able to start from a 60% starting charge standpoint. Abby actually just got a buff here today. We'll be talking about it right after this, but she ends up being a unit that has 30% charge already here on a 7-turn cooldown. So now with this change, Abby is at least going to have the capacity to be able to work in a double Koyanskaya setup where she maybe couldn't before. So this will make Abby a lot more usable now, just as a conventional 3-turn single target unit. And then from the buff yesterday, Iskandar went from not really being able to 3-turn without the help of someone like Summer Kuro to all of a sudden, my man ends up having 30% charge on a 5-turn cooldown and can now start from potentially 30%. So he ends up kind of going from broke to rich as all hell. He ends up basically being a very nice beneficiary of this, being able to start from at least a 50% starting charge standpoint. And obviously the rich get richer, because Gilgamesh is yet another unit that also has 30% charge on a 5-turn cooldown. So yeah, he also has expanded where he can start from in that regard. Romulus, the original version, the 3-star version, is also another unit that has 20% charge on a 5-turn cooldown. So just like Lalter, just like Canis, he's going to be able to start out from potentially a 60% starting charge standpoint. And you should, again, because he's a low-star unit, at least have the capacity to get the coins for him. King Protea is another really, really interesting one, as she ends up having a lot of, stuff per turn, but she's one of those units that does have cooldown in her kit, and so this does allow her the capacity to now be able to function with double Oberon and Koyanskaya and start with a single Koyanskaya and start from that 60% starting charge standpoint. So again, another potential beneficiary of this 5th append. Now, we did want to mention, again, there are other units out there that do have the capacity to get stronger from the 5th append. Someone like Nero Claudius here, caster, does have the 3rd skill that increases attack for 3 turns by a whopping 50%. But the problem in a conventional Koyanskaya setup was that it was a 7-turn cooldown, so you never got to double up this skill. But now with the 5th append, you would be able to, and this would significantly increase damage numbers for her. And again, we can kind of pull that up here real fast just to give you guys an idea of how this will look. So again, this is not going to necessarily be as big of a deal for every unit, or in some cases, some units might actually gain more benefit from it, assuming it's a skill that maybe had, like, say, NP damage that Oberon would be able to double up already. So suddenly having the capacity to double up the skill when you didn't have it before would now drastically increase damage. And you guys can see the bottom one here is basically without the 5th append in play, but now up here we end up basically with it in play, and you guys can see it's making a sizable difference to the tune of at least like 50,000 points of damage basically. So we do end up with at least a nice bump up in damage for someone like Summer Umu. And that's just one example of a unit that can maybe be the beneficiary. So remember the rules I laid out at the beginning of the video. Units that have, steroids can naturally have the cooldowns changed, and that can change not only when you pop them, but also maybe even just allow you to be able to double pop them. So that's something to be able to consider with the 5th append in mind. And then our last one here is going to be someone like Maid Alter. Maid Alter has always been famous for her reloaded memes. If you're not sure what that is, it's the ability to basically double up on her 3rd skill. This is actually probably where thought processes involving the Koyanskaya system kind of came from. That is, reloaded memes allowed her to be able to double up on this 30% quick up and get a ton of extra damage. It functionally gave her a 60% steroid for her NP. But a unit like this now with the new cooldown reduction, whereas before it used to take you the 3 turns without some sort of intervention, now you can pull off reloaded memes in as fast as only 2 turns. So again, there are some interesting applications with units that do already end up having cooldown reduction somewhere in their kit. And certainly having the capacity to be able to double up in just 1 turn is also there when we start to consider the 5th append. So that is why this is going to make a huge benefit to her. It's where it's really going to matter for certain units that we might have a change in cooldown structure. Honestly, I'm really surprised that the devs kind of came out here and gave us a 5th append like this. It's not going to be a huge deal for every unit in the game, but it's certainly something that we should now consider as we start to evaluate every unit we come across, and whether or not it will actually come into play for not only their charging situation and the comps that they work in, but also the steroids and how we're going to use them down the stretch. So let me know what you guys think about, again, the 5th append and how you guys see yourself using it. Were there any units that you feel like I forgot to talk about? Again, maybe we end up with buffs here in the next day or two that end up being things that I'll have to add to the list, but it is an interesting thing to consider nonetheless. Obviously, challenge scenarios do abound, so there are going to be units that are going to be greatly beneficial once we start getting beyond 3 turns. But I do think it is an interesting append, and I am interested to see it, obviously in spite of the whole coin situation. Hopefully the devs give us the fix for that sooner rather than later, and hopefully we end up having the ability to swap those appends, real soon here, because I do think this is going to be an interesting thing to consider for a lot of units going forward. Anyways, thank you guys for watching. I will see you guys for the next video. Later. Woo! Okay, chat. Good enough? Missed like half of it, but I had the lecture earlier today. How can we black grail with Erish Kagal? Okay, hold on, because Leah's the one that figured that one out. Let me go back to Erish and I'll try to head math it. It has to do with the 5-turn cooldown, right? So basically, she already has cooldown reduction right here. Okay, there you go. Avalon gotcha. So yeah, so Erish Append 2 level 1, so basically 10% here. Append 5 level 6, so you get it for 2 cooldown reductions. Erish skill 2, so you get 50% charge. And skill 1. And skill 3. Oberon skill 1. And Oberon skill 1. Wave 2 is Oberon skill 2 and Oberon skill 2. Wave 3 is switch Oberon for Koyan, 50%. And then you should have Erish's skill 2 back. Yep, that works. And I think, correct me if I'm wrong, Leah, but Shingen works the exact same, right? You need 2 appends. You do need 2 appends. Like, chat, I tried to disclaim that whenever possible, right? I may have missed it on air, so I'm sorry if I did. But again, like, yes, that is a thing. It is now possible to do. Yeah, the 2 appends is brutal, yet the exact same. Yep. Yeah, I mean, we'll chat and consider this, right? So it's 240 coins are what you need for that. I think where it's brutal is when you're like, hey, I also want a 120 the unit, because at that point it goes from being 240 coins that you need to now it's 540 coins that you need. Have fun, right? Like, no one's going to want to do that. But like, even if we just consider, like, say, a singular copy of the unit, that's 90 out of the 240 right there. So you're looking at 150. That's at least enough that you can get out of bonding, right? It's not, ideal. You will have to bond that unit pretty much up to like bond 14 to get that, but it is something that can be done. I think Append 5 is going to be really good in Tamamo CQ comps to get her going faster. Well, keep in mind what I said, right? So the logical use when we're not talking about farming, right? So if we can farm, if we can 3-turn, we don't care about the 5th append to a degree, right? If we're talking challenge content. Similarly, I'm going to say around 10 turns, you also don't really care. Here's why. You're not getting it anymore. You're not getting its beneficial effect. So like, it lives in this nice, like, hey, I'm more than 3 turns, but less than 10, where I can only get back to my skills a second time. That's where it's at its peak usefulness. After this point, it starts to go down and degrade in its usefulness. It's not like totally useless. It just starts to matter way less the longer the fight's duration goes on. I think it works for Cuckoo. Can do it though. I think I will wait to try. Cuckoo. So Cuckoo's obviously got the 50% charge on a 6-turn cooldown here. No, I don't think 6-turn cooldown people can do it. Can Archetype Earth use Oberon now? Yes, and it does really help her. She is one of the best examples of who the 5th append is good for. Like, it is ideal as an append for Arcuid specifically. Cuckoo gets the double dip skills faster. Yeah, she's somebody that basically is going to be the beneficiary of, like, hey, like, for instance, I can get the Buster Up back on turn 2 instead of turn 3. So, like, yeah, I'm not going to say it doesn't help. It does. My question to you, chat, is this worth is getting a skill on turn 2 rather than turn 3 worth 120 coins to you? I'm going to say for the average person, the answer is no. But for some enthusiasts or people that are swimming in coins, absolutely, right? Like, you're just trying to make your favorite unit stronger. But yeah, I think for your average person, this will not be a significant enough like increase to really matter, right? Wave 2s are beefier and 90 plus plus. Oh, they certainly are, right? Like, I mean, and this is just in general. We've started to see this not even from 90 plus plus, but from 90 plus onward, we started to see them begin to monkey with, you know, like turns 1 and 2. So it is a thing. It is something to consider. I'm just saying it may or may not matter depending on the circumstances. You can still 120 a character and unlock an append with NP3. Yeah, you should be able to. I mean, like, let's see here. So let's see, like, even NP2 you get 180 coins for that. You get 180 coins for that. So yeah, that would be 360 total right there. That'd be enough for at least that. So yeah, adding in a third copy would absolutely do it. You'd absolutely be able to get one append. Yeah, you can 120 at NP2, but you get no appends if you try that. Wait till we start getting 90 stars. 90 stars. Oh, that, yeah, okay. I read that as like, what do you mean 90 star? Any arts unit got the benefit from Append 5? I think kind of like what we were talking about there with like challenge scenarios, it could really be a thing. I didn't look too closely at the arts units or the quick units because where we are able to really set some rules is with the buster units. With arts and quick, it's very unit dependent and it very much depends on the cooldowns and what they have in their kit. So there's no real way to like be able to really say like, oh, it's going to work for this unit. So like, for instance, chat, let's just, I'll take Squirtoria here. Okay, so Squirtoria has this on a 6-turn cooldown. That would make it basically down to 5. She has her second skill here on a 4-turn cooldown. This puts it down to 3. And she has her third skill here on a 5-turn cooldown. This puts it down to 4, right? But it's only for the one time. So, you know, is this really going to matter? Well, probably not. I have seen some people say like, "Oh, but Cad, I can throw Tamamo into a 3-turn comp and pop her NP, and then I can get 2 turns of cooldown reduction from that, and then that would allow me." I'm like, yeah, you can do that. Nobody wants to do that. Like, that is a thing that is possible. Nobody's going to want to go to that length if they don't have to. So it's something to consider that, like, yes, this sort of thing is possible, but it's the same thing with, like, okay, let's say you have a Lotto comp, which is just double Castoria and, like, your damage dealer, or you have a Lotto comp that's double Castoria and your damage dealer plus both Castoria NPs being required. Which comp are you going to take? You're going to take the one where you don't have to use the Castoria NP 10 out of 10 times because it's just way faster, right? That's kind of the consideration here. So it's like, yeah, I mean, obviously, if we're in a challenge environment or if we're in a scenario where we just don't care and we're just dicking around, yeah, it's possible. But I think, like, just for general, like, logic purposes, most people are not going to want to have to jump through extra hoops if they don't have to. You think Tiamat can make use of the append with her low cooldown on skill 3? No, we actually talked about that the other day. I don't really think it matters. Because Tiamat is somebody that already, like, has the extremely low cooldown on the third append. God damn it, I do this every time. I start scrolling down and I'm like, it's the freaking beast form. So again, it's a 10% charge skill here on a 2-turn cooldown. You're not going to get any benefit from this at all. What you might gain benefit from is this, and being able to double pop the NP damage. That might be a thing, but this was already something you could do on turn 3 anyways. So adding in the 5th Append, all it's really going to potentially do is it, if I remember correctly, it's like you could pop it on turn 1, you can pop it on turn 2, you could pop it on turn 3 twice. So it's like, I think all the 5th Append added was, yes, you could potentially pop it on turn 2. But you're not going to like try to sacrifice, you're not going to try to sacrifice the double pop on turn 3 for anything. Does someone like Mao benefit from the 5th Append? I don't see how 30%ers benefit from the Append. Wait, okay, so like you didn't watch, I assume. Here you go, chat. So Mao's got it on a 5-turn cooldown, right? And here, let me do this. Let me make it smaller here to explain. Okay, so let's say you pop the 30% charge, turn 1. Say 5-turn cooldown. Well, not really. Now it's 4-turn, thanks to the 5th Append. As we go into turn 3 here, it's now 3 turns. Well, Koyanskaya. Now, it's 1 turn. So as we go into the final wave, it's 0. And that's just with a single Koyanskaya. So what this allowed us to do is it allowed us to switch out of a composition in which we have to use double Koyanskaya. Now, all of a sudden, we can use double Oberon. So, okay, let's say that. We use one of the Oberon 50% charges here. That completes wave 2. We use the other Oberon 50% charge in the final wave. And because we got back to it, we have the 30% charge. So now we have a 20% charge here from Oberon. That completes wave 3. We still have another 20% charge. So this allows us to either do that on wave 1, and now we start with 50% without mana loading, or we can include mana loading, and now we can start from 30%. So if we have like a non-MLB event C, we can do that. Is it going to mean a lot more damage or anything like that? No. It just potentially frees you up from having to take mana loading, or allows you access to the capacity to be able to start from a better starting charge standpoint for scenarios where you don't have an MLBC. So basically, it just makes your unit more useful. Good luck finding Tamamos on support list reliably. You can find them reliably. Finding them with the right CE, that's another story. Is there a damage change between 2 times Oberon and 2 times Koyan? Oh, don't do this to me, chat. That's like another hour-long video. Yes, there is. It really depends on the scenario. So basically, you're looking at with like, let's say a conventional double Oberon comp. You're probably getting like, well, actually, there is no such thing as a conventional double Oberon comp. Oh, God. Double Koyanskaya we'll start with. This is easier, right? The charge in a double Koyanskaya comp normally looks like this. Where essentially you either have a unit that has like 30% charge of their own, or you have units that have like 50% charge and you don't care. But it is an interesting thing nonetheless, okay? Either way, how this normally works is you normally end up with the Oberon 20% charge, aka 30% in P damage in wave 3. But for the first 2 turns there, you've got double Koyanskaya 100% up. So when you switch out of that into like, you know, say single Koyanskaya, now you've only got potentially 50%. You know what? No, there's just an easier explanation for this. All right. Multiple factors here, chat. Factor number 1. Is the node man? If the node is man, double Koyanskaya likely wins. Factor number 2. Does the unit have the capacity to have, I believe it's more than 30% in steroids that they can double up on with double Koyanskaya. If they do, then I believe double Koyanskaya ends up working out better. But you'd be surprised, there's not a lot, actually. Most units don't. And then number 3 here is, and this is the really unfortunate one. Actually, I think it may be 60%. That may be the amount. It may not be 30. And then number 3 here is basically, because I'm doing all this from memory chat. Number 3 here is basically, do you only care about third wave damage? If you don't, then like if all you care about is third wave damage, double Oberon's usually better. If all you care about is like third wave and second wave, like if there's any other wave you do care about the damage for, double Koyan's usually the better option because it's more consistent usually across the first 2 turns. So I have to like say all of that as usually because there's not a hard and fast set of rules, and it really does depend on the units at play. Hello, Dusky. Thank you for the follow. Welcome. Fifth Append came out and Melison's life hasn't changed a bit. Yeah, I actually tried to use it with her. It really didn't make a difference. Which, I gotta be honest, good, because Melison's already somebody that has 50% too much charge. What do I mean, chat? I mean, you can literally take Melison's 100% charged third skill, and you could cut it in half, and she would still be a Black Grail looper. You can get rid of half the charge of that skill, and that girl can still Black Grail loop. So, like, if the fifth Append somehow gave her more charge, I don't know what you'd do with it. There would be no real point. I see you took my idea from yesterday. Oh no, I didn't take it. I've already been like sitting here thinking on the side about like what to do with the fifth Append, and it's why like chat, trust me, I've come into all these discussions armed, but what I ended up doing today is I ended up hashing out a set of rules for it. And that's what allowed me to like make the video here. JP hasn't done another SSR or SR ticket recently, did they? I mean, like they have their anniversary, but like free? No, I don't believe they have. When will you be giving your doctoral thesis on why Lartoria is the best unit in FGO length 2 hours? I mean, I certainly could, chat, but I'm also going to tell you that like it's it wouldn't be the truth as much as that pains me. Which is why, chat, I need all of you to like I need all of you to Dorime. I need all of you to start praying that my girl here get this buff. No, do it. You do it right now. You clap those hands together or I'll clap them cheeks. I do really hope it's her. I really do too, in all seriousness. Like I said, if it's not her, I'd really want it to be John. But there are numerous rulers at this point that could get it. So, like, I'm absolutely hoping for it. I'm coping for this probably more than like any other like any other upgrade I've coped for in a long time. But I'm also like internally trying to tell myself like it's not gonna happen. It's not going to happen. So. But if it does happen, I want everyone to ping me and tell me that it happened. Come on, you know it's Amakusa. Don't say that. Bunny can become the quick savior. I don't even know how that would be possible, but sure. Thoughts on the buffs today? Yeah, we still got to go over that. So, okay, where were we? So I am going to say, like, I didn't have either of these picked for getting a buff. I know a lot of people think like Billy really needed it. Billy's NP damage is not why you use Billy, chat. He's called Billy the Crit for a reason. Okay? For a freaking reason. All right? And like, oh, hey, would you look at that? Like he already had crit damage here of 32%. I know. Let's give him more. Like, what? I mean, like, I'm certainly happy it's a round number, but like, what the hell, man? This is just kind of nutty. So they took, his 1 turn evasion and 3 turns of crit damage, and they turned it into 3 turns of crit damage at 50% instead. Now a quick steroid here to help out his damage, and star absorption as well for 1 turn, even though my boy do be doing things as an archer who's already one of the higher star absorption classes in the game. And hey, you know what? Fuck it. We ball. Give him 30 crit stars so that he doesn't have to generate any. Like, they turned him into an absolute crit monster in that regard. And part of the reason that I always felt like Billy was strong is I think a lot of people discount this, chat. He's a 3-star with 50% charge. He's always been solid for that and his crit damage. Like, I'm not saying he couldn't have a buff. I'm not saying this is a bad buff. I'm saying I'm surprised they chose him over, like, several other options at this point. So it's certainly an interesting one. I'm not going to get like upset over it or anything like that. If you guys like Billy, this is absolutely a fantastic buff for you, right? Particularly if you guys like to use him a lot. So in that regard, I think like your challenge-oriented people that love doing like min stars and stuff like that, he's absolutely going to be a very interesting option now for that. So Cad will pray for a Fergus battery. Amen. I feel bad for my boy Fergus. He's the only AoE saber that can't 3-turn at the moment. At least not without, Kuro shenanigans. But yeah, it is what it is. So let's take a look at the damage numbers now. Again, we basically, hold on, where's the old, where's the new? So this is the new, bottom is the old. Okay. So now he's up to 374k. Before he was at 334k. So, like, is it a huge spike in damage? No, but like, I mean, chat, it's not shit. These are neutral numbers. This is still quite solid. My boy be doing things with double Summer Scotty and Oberon. Now, yeah, it's a level 100 Knights of Marines. Not everyone's gonna have something like this, and not everyone's gonna like want to try that. So your damage numbers may be a lot further south of here. But I'm just gonna say again, it's definitely one of those units where I'm just surprised that he was the choice. Who it should have been though, I mean, your guess is as good as mine. I had kind of been saying like I didn't really actually think they needed to buff any of the 3-star archers. They were in a fairly good spot, and they're already power creeping the higher ups at this point. Like the fact that we keep buffing 3-star archers and not like 4 and 5-star archers, it's kind of nuts to me at this point. All right, then next up we have Abby Doobie. So Abby was another odd one to me. And here's why I'm going to say Abby's odd. I didn't have Abby picked simply due to the fact that, like, and now having gone through the 5th Append video there, like, it makes a lot more sense. But I didn't have Abby picked primarily because Abby is just like, say, Amakusa, always going to have a use. What do I mean? Well, right here, chat. It's not defense pierce, not defensive buff removal. It is all buffs gone before damage. Abby has always been a very solid boss killer for that reason alone. And it's why, like, when we go back to, I don't know if you guys remember back when Salem came out for NA, there were a ton of people telling people, don't roll Abby, Hoku's better. And those people had real egg on their face when Hoku came out and was not immediately the Black Grail looper that they thought she was. And Abby actually proved immediately useful in several boss fights. So, yeah, no, Abby's always been good. And they have given her buffs before now. So, for instance, she already had the upgrade to her first skill here that gave her 30% charge. I will say they fucked her because, again, they didn't need to do it on a 7-turn cooldown. That was just kind of rude. But, yeah, it's one of the things that they tried to address. They made her a more consistent, like, 3-turnable type of unit. And certainly they tried their damnedest to, like, keep her relevant in the challenge scene. Now, Abby already had Terror. That's already been a thing, and it's already been one of her strong suits. She has the ability to obviously buff remove from enemies and also debilitate them and make their lives living hells. So in that regard, Abby's just kind of been a solid option for a lot of challenge scenarios. But now they come in here and they basically take her ability to drain and reduce attack, and they turn it into, hey, now it's a 6-turn cooldown instead, and it's basically doing the same things as before. But we've added a new increases own damage against enemies with terror status for 1 turn and the ability to charge in P gauge by 20%. So Abby is now a 50% charging unit, and that's not even considering the 10% charge she gets per turn. Plus, the terror status is literally just the actual debuff landing on them. It does not require the proc. So it does not require you to stun the enemy. It just requires the clock for you to be able to increase your power mod damage. And how much do we increase the damage by? Yeah, we just doubled Abby's damage. Like, I'm not going to get upset about this one either, because we got some crazy units in the game now. So I think it's A-okay. But I'm also not going to say that Abby really needed something like this. This is kind of nuts. Abby is just like, oh, okay, cool. I'll just kill now. Now I'd win. So let's take a look here, basically, with Abby's old numbers. So, chat, this is before the buff. This is neutral damage numbers for Abby. They were not bad numbers, okay? Here's new Abby with double Koyanskaya. Oh, would you look at that? The terror niche here alone is basically almost at like where she was with Koyanskaya man trait, right? So we are literally going even higher at this point by wave 3. And, oh, would you look at that, chat? We can combine that for even more damage. Oh, well, that's interesting. What if this weren't the best case scenario? Now we don't necessarily have as much man trait, but we have even more damage. So it's like I said, like, this is getting kind of nutty. We're starting to get to, like, here's what I would call it, monopoly levels of damage. And the reason we're kind of having to is, you know, and I did hear a tidbit from the interview, like, Mr. 2 acknowledged the fact that we've got some pretty crazy damage numbers in the game now. And I'm like, you think? I wonder whose fault that is. And it's probably not Mr. 2's, it's probably Nasu's. But because apparently Nasu ends up, like, you know, basically dictating a lot more of this than we ever realized. But it is interesting to say the least that a lot of this is you know, certainly being caused by the power creep that's out there. So we've not only not buffed units for a long time, but when we buff them, Now we end up having to give them 100% power mods that they didn't have before. Because that's how stupid damage scaling is getting. And the crazy part is, even with this power mod, she's like not that broken, right? Like, shit do be getting better. Makes Abby like Kentucky a wave 1 nuker. Yeah, I mean, like, don't get me wrong. I'm not like upset about this in the slightest. I'm just like, if I'm trying to point out anything, I'm pointing out how ridiculous this is what we have to do now, right? Like Abby was not who I had on my pick either for like, oh hey, this is the foreigner that needs the buff. But at the same time, it's also like, yeah, no, I mean, like, the fact that you can add 100% power mod to a unit and they're not broken kind of speaks volumes to the state of the game at the moment. Cad, can I get that Hoku and P upgrade on a similar level? Where would that put her in relation to Cuckoo? Later, Katana. Does Space Airish only need level 6 of Append 5 to do Black Grail Atlas? I mean, no, you only need one level in theory, right? Like, because you only need it once to do the charge skill. Well, okay, no, hold on. She's got the 70%, so... Oh, God, how did that work? I mean, I don't think so, right? Like, I think you could just do it on the once, but like, listen, let's be honest, she's a good challenge unit, so just level it all the way. Cad Kojiro is going to get an OP buff tomorrow, obviously. I mean, honestly, it should probably be Corday at this point, but we'll see, right? Cad, can I have a Yang buff next? I'm surprised we haven't gotten Yang. Like, Yang is who I thought they were going to do here. Still below Cuckoo, probably? Oh, yeah, probably. There are some enemies that are specifically terror immune. Yeah, that will be a problem, right? You're also going to have enemies that, just naturally have, like, debuff immunity or debuff resistance, so that'll be a problem. Like if your terror whiffs, oof, right? Yang would have gotten one during her raid up, not after. Well, but think about this. What if we think about it from the concept of like an evil developer, right? Like, yes, we won't buffer with the first one. We'll buffer with the second one after her banner is gone. And then that's exactly like, what will just mold everyone. I swear, if we see a Voyager buff for the third Anni in a row, I'm malding. Voyager, let's go! No, I'm just kidding. Who'd you rather, Hoku or Yang? What, get the buff or fuck? They did that to Tama Lancer? Yep. It's not the first time that they've done something like that. Yeah, I would actually like to see Yang get a summer form. You're saying Mr. 2 is evil? No, I'm saying I think now, as of this point in time, enough context clues have come out that we actually kind of know that Mr. 2 is not like solely responsible for everything. He's not necessarily running the show, right? Like every decision that gets made about the game is not necessarily Mr. 2's, which, man, that sucks. Wait, isn't Yang on Rate Up right now? Yeah, Yang's on Rate Up right now, but we already got the Foreigner buff for the first one. So tomorrow is going to be Ruler, and then the day after that will be another Foreigner. Luckily, it won't maul us NA Clairvoyancy X players. We see all most of the time. I mean, you're not wrong, but I think it's certainly something that, like, us NA players, as we look towards JP, just wish and hope that, like, hey, we see the way some of these units have been for the last, like, 2 years. Please, dear God, buff them so that I only have to wait 2 years, right? Is the second Foreigner buff the last one? I think. No, we have the casters for the last one. Which, as we all know, our casters here are going to be Ace. And it's actually going to be Caster Coup that they turn into a 4-star. Like, that's the upgrade. Oh, right, the Merlin buff. I still, like, chat, I still don't think it's going to be a Merlin buff. Like, and if we get a Merlin buff, unless it's a minuscule one, I just, like, I don't know. I'll be like, man, this was just unnecessary. This could have gone to another unit, right? Scotty buff? Yeah, I mean, honestly, I'd rather see a Scotty buff. Like, and in that regard, chat, maybe this is Scotty. And maybe this is Summer Scotty. And maybe they buff both of them. And maybe all of a sudden we come out of this and, like, Quick is the new meta. Like, can you freaking imagine? If somehow with 2 buffs they managed to, like, 180 the entire server? People would maul so hard. That's too much cope. Honestly, though, like the chaotic person in me just wants to see that, right? Like, because I still remember, like chat, how many of you guys remember back to, like, Anni 3 when we got Scotty? And, like, all of a sudden, Quick went from hot trash to, like, oh my god, everything's great. And, like, we literally saw what was one of the worst 5-stars in the game at the time, Dante's, turn into one of the best 5-stars in the game overnight, because we had Scotty come out and the improvements to the Quick system, and then Dante's got his NP interlude right on the heels of that too. If that happens, is Quick saved? Oh, I have no idea. No, I mean, like, I'd still say Quick still has an issue, right? Like, it would depend on what the buffs were and what they would try to do. But it is a really, like that would be a wild swing if in the span of, like, 2 days, everything just 180s. They want to sell the solution, so I doubt it. Yeah, I kind of agree with that. Karen, best Omni Looper after? I mean, yeah. But yeah, chat, I'll say if it's not Bunny, if it's not John, then yes, my hope is that it's Summer Scotty for pure chaos. Chaos. Summer 2 unit gonna be Quick Oberon? I mean, it's always possible, chat. I've mentioned before, I've had theories about this, and I've already said, so just so you guys can say you've heard it, chat. You already currently are in a meta in which, so, like, we need 300% charge to 3 turn, right? You're already in a meta in which there are the possibility of having two 70% chargers with a 50% charger equaling a total of 190% charge. This is how we know, plus a K scope, that all we need in order to be able to loop now is 10%. So the second we change this into 70% again, now you're at 210% charge. And now everybody in the game can 3-turn. And now, literally, like, you don't even need a maxed out mana loading. You can just unlock it. Nor do you need a maxed K scope. Karen is such a good unit, but I don't see many people talk about her. I'm not particularly fond of her character-wise, but she is definitely a solid damage-dealing unit. I think part of the issue, too, is that, like, one, she's a ruler, so people don't like trying to give the rulers justice because everybody has a hard-on for Avengers. Two is the fact that she is, I'm going to say, like, maybe a contentious character. And three is the fact that I think maybe a lot of people don't actually quite understand how to get like the value out of her. Like they don't understand the aspect of like, hey, you need to like be running her with some sort of debuff so that she actually gets more damage. Mostly if she hits niche. Yeah, 100%. Like, and I agree with you on that, Leah. Like, I don't think most people realize that. I think it's simply a level of like ignorance rather than necessarily even malice. I will mauld tomorrow if there's an Amakusa buff. I will be right there with you maulding. I like we can mauld together because chat, Amakusa does not need a buff. Leave that man where he be. No matter how much you buff him, he will not get more popular. Black Grail is the debuff and buff all in one. Yep. You can do Black Grail. You can run an Avenger in the backline like Angry Mango. You literally, there are multiple ways you can get it. Even if you're concerned about like, oh, but I don't want to run Black Grail. Yeah, there's still another way you can do it without actually impacting her damage. Well, negatively at least. They can make Amakusa the most broken unit in the game, and I wouldn't roll for him. So, and like in the same degree, maybe this is why they buffed Abby, right? Like they might have come in and buffed Abby today because of this chat. Why? That might be why. Everyone hyped up for Summer Melu when Karen not only out damages, but she out damages Summer Melu with double niche, and Karen shares one of the niches. It's ridiculous how strong she is. Yeah, I see a lot of people really try to hype up Melu and act like she's as strong as her Lancer form, but Ruler Melu is not. Ruler Melu is still good, but she is like not the brokenness that her Lancer form is. If they buff Amakusa, I'll roll him on an A, just in P1 though. Well, I think that's partially why Amakusa got the last buff that he did, was so like we just mentioned, okay, maybe they buffed Abby because of Waiseki Kenshin. I think they originally buffed Amakusa because of Abby. What do I mean? I mean this Abby. Because this Abby, chat, also has the ability to remove defensive buffs, but not stopping there. Sorry about that. Not stopping there. Her skill is an actual targeted buff strip. So, yeah, that might have been why they saw they had another Buster AoE unit and they just said, this encroaches on Amakusa. Amakusa's weird. His kit's all over the place. Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna be honest with you. It feels like they let Intern-kun play in the sandbox with Amakusa. I didn't believe it until I saw the spreadsheet. Chat, do me this favor. Stop putting so much trust in spreadsheets and tier lists. Start thinking about how you can use units effectively. Like, it's a good idea to understand where people lie damage-wise. I'm just trying to say, like, don't treat it as gospel. It's usually that's how we have people, like, being like, oh, well, that unit's trash because their damage is low. And I'm like, yeah, what if they have a really unique skill set and or niche that really allows them to be powerful in the right circumstances? No, the spreadsheet says they're bad. No, the tier list didn't rate them highly. Like that's why you don't do that, right? Start thinking for yourself. No, don't do that either. Let me think for. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah, obviously think for yourself. I think spreadsheets for how a servant can loop is fine, such as for what comps a buster looper can use. Yeah, I don't have any issue with that. I mean, I'd still say it's probably better to like learn the rules of things, right? So that's like chat. Look at the Fit the Pen video tonight. I came up with a set of rules for you guys so that this is where you guys can realize, hey, does this unit have X? Does this unit have Y? If they do, they're probably really good with the fifth append, right? That's how I usually do it. It's honest to God, it's a better idea to understand mechanics and to understand like kind of where certain things are good. And doing so will make it so that you don't have to memorize 400 different units. Oh, they really use spreadsheets for lotto comp guides? Yeah, and I'm okay with that one a little bit more because it's like, listen, nobody got the time to come up with all this themselves. Like, at least not your average person, right? Like, I totally understand that. And I do understand that's where, like, tier lists come from. Usually the reason people rely on tier lists is they go, all right, I picked up my 5th gacha game. Who's good? I don't know. I'm gonna go look at a tier list. And that's literally what it is. It's like they don't have the time or the effort to actually like understand the game and to actually like try to gain some sort of conceptual knowledge of it. So they just rely on something and what everyone else says. So I do get that's how tier lists work. That's why people rely on them. But what I'm trying to say here is basically, at least in FGO, 1, tier lists aren't that big of a deal because we don't have any sort of PvP content. And 2, honest to God, like understanding the game is not as hard as people make it out to be. It's quite easy to basically gain a basic mastery of the concepts. And then from there, just learn, like I said, like a couple of rules, and then all of a sudden you'll flourish. I think FGO would ever implement a stance-based character. That is a skill to swap between stance A and B that has different effects depending on the stance. You mean Jekyll and Hyde? You mean Aoko Aozaki? Someone on the wiki predicted the first 3 days of the buff. They predicted Yang and a kid for today, but placed Abigail on day 6, and they placed Buntori and Charlotte for tomorrow. Wanted to give you that copium. Thank you. I appreciate that. Hold on. Oh, thank you. I needed that hit. Time for me to go to Game Press to get inspiration from their tier list. Cease and desist. Aoko? Yeah, so Aoko has normal Aoko and then super Aoko, and it changes the kit some. What's the chance of Sherlock getting another buff? Honestly, I don't think he really needs it. I think he's actually really good where he is. Here's the thing I'm going to say, chat, and this is going to sound kind of bad, right? But I think it's the honest to God truth. whenever we talk units in a game, there are going to be, damage dealers. There are going to be supports. There are going to be challenge units. There are going to end up being sacrificial units. Okay? Like, there's all different types of units in this game. Sherlock is going to be one of those, like, he's an offensive support for challenge content. That right there just means that Sherlock immediately does not have as much uses in a game that is like 95% farming. Okay? So you're already relegating him to like the 5% of the content. And then from there, he's not even necessarily for all of the stuff. Now, is that because he's in a bad spot? Is that because he's not good? No, I don't think it is. I think it just has to do with basically what the nodes are demanding at the moment and or kind of where he sits in a challenge meta. I think he's good. I don't think he's essential. I don't think he's gotta have. And I think at the end of the day, he's in a relatively good spot and doesn't really have that many downsides other than the fact that the man just doesn't have a damage dealing NP, which he probably will never have. So in that regard, does Sherlock need another buff? I don't really think so, but I'm sure people that really like him would beg to differ. It's just, to me, like, I don't think just because he's not getting used all the time, it doesn't mean that he's bad, right? And I do think that sort of mentality is often what gets us in trouble in FGO. People have a tendency to be like, oh, well, this unit's not getting used very often, so they're not good. For instance, let's take Buntoria, right? Like, I really want her to get a buff, but I really want her to get her buff so that her NP damage gets better, and also to maybe fix some of the, like, quirkiness of the kit, but not because she's bad. There's so many people out there that will tell you that she's bad, but they also just don't really have any idea how to use her in a lot of circumstances. And I kind of know this from how much I have used her and how much I see people don't seem to talk about certain aspects in her kit. So it's definitely a thing. I do think that that's kind of how we end up in these scenarios. Is a lot of it is just people kind of tend to use their favorites. Like, and I'm gonna be dead serious with you guys, okay? So like, let's take a second here. If you're somebody that only uses like Space Ishtar or Melisson or like, I don't know, like Morgan, right? Like, if you only are like using these units all the time, should I really trust how you feel about other units in the game? I don't really think I should, because you're not really ever taking other stuff. You're constantly relying on like one or two units to do the heavy lifting for you. So your concept of what is good in this game is kind of warped and skewed by that. You don't really end up using a lot of the other units, and you don't really have any concept of where the damage ranges in the game even are, right? Trust me, but no one else. Yeah. But that's what I'm trying to say, is that, like, in general, I think this is just a problem all around. People are usually a product of their experiences. And, like, for instance, if you really like, say, Space Ishtar, oh, well, Summer Kama is just bad. Is it that Summer Kama's actually bad, or is it just that you really like Space Ishtar? And like, we see these arguments all the time. By the way, I'm not trying to like pick on Space Ishtar. Just that, like, in general, we do see that, like, yeah, people will absolutely stand their favorite character. They will stump for them. They will even sit there and they will trash talk any unit that may or may not be competitive with the character, right? And I'm like, okay, that's cool, but no, I'm not going to listen to you because you're clearly biased and you clearly are just having an agenda that you're pushing, right? Like, at that point, no, I don't care. You're not trying to, like, actually get to the truth of the matter. You're not trying to, like, have a constructive discussion. It's just, oh, I hate this other unit, right? Like, if you only use Melisson, every other Lancer in the game is trash in your eyes? Yeah, 100%. And listen, I'm gonna be real with you. I do think that there is some truth to that, at least, right? Like, they've made Melisson so strong that I can see how people think that way. So I do think it's on them to kind of buff the other units. Like, and this is why I said, like, looking back here, like, chat, why no Lancers? Like it is kind of like weird at this point. In a weird way, we did get a Lancer buff. Eris ends up being a Black Grail looper now. But that's only because of the 5th Append and only for people that manage to have it, right? So, yeah, I think it's just a all-around weird scenario. Not my boy Enkidu, please, not another Enkidu buff. It's all engagement bait. I think so too. And I'm gonna be real with y'all. I think that's why I'm like not a more popular content creator. I am such a shit like bait person because like I do like to bait people for like fun and stuff from time to time, but I don't like constantly bait people. I don't do it maliciously. I don't purposely say wrong statements to get like people to engage with me. And sadly, unfortunately, like the way algorithms and stuff work nowadays, it's just not good. And this is why, like, honest to God, this is why I really like the people that, you know, like, hey, you go in and you watch my videos on YouTube. Hey, you get on the Discord, you interact with us. Hey, you retweet the stuff that I'm talking about on Twitter. Because I know I'm not like the avant-garde person, the edgy like person that's constantly frothing at the mouth. So when you guys actually do take the time to like, you know, help me and help my content, I really do appreciate it. But Cad, you're a masturbator on stream? Absolutely. I masturbate every night. All of you. Cat is just okay at baiting, not a masturbator? Well, which is it, chat? Make up your mind. I really want a 4-star caster to be Helena. I do too. I don't want Helena. I think, in all honesty, Helena's still in a really good spot. Who I want Shiva. I want probably at this point even someone like Medea Lily. I would like to see maybe some of the other options out there, right? So like taking a look at the 4-star caster class here. So like out of all of these, that could use an upgrade. That could use an upgrade. That could use an upgrade. I think she's perfectly fine for what she is. Edison's had enough upgrades. I don't think he needs more. Chat, y'all know it. I know it. We all know it. That needs an upgrade. I've changed my vote. That absolutely needs an upgrade. Please, dear Lord, buff Iris Veal. Please, 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 buff Iris Veal. That could use an upgrade. That could use an upgrade. Honestly, that could use an upgrade. I'm not sure on this one. I think Mew's okay. I think if we're gonna give her an upgrade, it needs to be like, hey, make like her arts up party wide. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Give shooting charge. Oh yeah, I mean even something like 20% would be strong for shooting, right? Like they could certainly give her 30%. That would probably be ideal for her. And then watch, like I say that and it's like, we've buffed caster shooting. She now has 80% charge. And I'll be like, huh? Like they'll end up doing something crazy. Well, Irie has had a buff, right? She just needs more. Like, she's kind of in the same, like, realm as, like, Janu, where she just has, like, that god-awful, like, early kit, and it just... it needs so much help. Even, chat, even with this 50% charge, this is nice. It needs so much more, right? Like, you look, they took the healing power from 50 to 100. They gave her the 50% charge. And they increased the allies' NP damage except for self. Okay, that's cool. Give me, like, charge per turn, 10% for 5 turns. Or you know what? Give me an MP interlude. Because, like, at this point in time, nah. This is not enough. Not enough anymore. Spook Anastasia buff? I'd love Anastasia to get another buff, but I don't think they will at this point in time. I like Waver as a generalist. Waver the savior of quick. They could. We've talked about that before. They could easily take like one of Waver's skills and be like, haha, 50% quick on top of this or something. And it's like, they could do that. That would be nice. That would make him a viable quick option. But let's be real, chat. He's already a viable quick option. It should be max HP. That would honestly be nice. I would like that. Max HP would certainly be a lot better. The only issue with max HP is that max HP can be dispelled. But let's be honest, if you're taking Iris Veal into a scenario in which she can have her shit dispelled, just put me up against the wall and with the firing squad at that point, chat. We're going down. Like, you are not gonna manage to live through something like that. Now, honestly, that might be an interesting idea. What if we gave Iris Veal buff removal resistance? I think that would be pretty cool. Then all of a sudden, you can't remove her guts. And then all of a sudden, maybe we tackle that, you know, with some other additional changes that really help her. And Iris Veal would at least be in a better spot as a challenge support. But I do think Iris Veal is living in this sort of concept, and we've talked about it before, right? Like, there are the 3 schools of, like, healing, okay? So there is, hey, we can prevent damage outright. So this is things like Solemn Defense, right? There is basically, okay, we can mitigate it, so we can try to reduce it. This is things like damage cut and just defense. And then there is, we can react to it, and that is things like guts and healing. Okay? I hate to say it, but this is ordered in order of actual, like, relevancy. This is the best tier, this is the second best tier, and this is the worst tier. If you can prevent damage, you absolutely should. If you can mitigate damage, you absolutely should. If you have to heal through damage, you might be dead already. So that is kind of the problem with it. I'm not saying you don't still need the third type. That is kind of the way the game works. It is your last resort. It is what you have to deal with. But yeah, no, by all means, your best defense is a good offense. And from there, your best defense is literally preventing the damage entirely. So it goes prevention, mitigation, and reaction. And reaction is the third and worst tier in theory. Wait, make Waver's first skill an Omni card buff. That way he keeps his generalist position. I mean, that doesn't necessarily help anything. That just makes Waver stronger, right? And if that's the goal, that's okay. But I will say that, like, remember, Waver's permanent. Everybody can get him on the initial ticket. So, like, I don't know. They certainly could buff him. I think that would be a joyous, momentous occasion, as literally every person's account gets better for having had Waver. But yeah, I definitely think at this point in time, he's somewhat balanced by the fact that he is generalist and doesn't have, like, a crazy kit. And he's still really good. But that's where, like, yeah, he's just kind of outclassed at this point by more focused supports. Is Black Grail Irie in a different unit or a costume? Black Grail Irie is not something we have in the game. She is literally something that you fight against in the actual whatchamacallit event. The gotta keep wanting to call it Amalek Case Files. It's not that. What was the name of it? It's Fate Zero collab. Quick needs someone that gives in P gain. Yeah. Excel Zero Order, thank you. Yeah, I could not remember it. Sleepy Fuji and Juicemar. Thank you guys for the follows. Waver has become a poor man's Oberon. Yeah, I mean, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that, right? But I do think, like, at the expense of maybe not, like, buffing everything to hell and back, it's probably a good idea to at least have, like, some concept of, like, hey, maybe we don't go crazy with this, right? But okay, chat, I think I'm going to end it here for tonight. Let me see who I'll be on. I'll be on. I'm going to send you guys over to Mr. Fox first. He's on tonight. Again, thank you guys for being here. I'll try to get this video out like soonish. Obviously, I know that that people have been waiting on it, so we'll try to talk about that. And we'll have more Fate Stay Night tomorrow night. So just again, keep in mind. Also, again, chat, pray for me. Pray for me. Pray for me for the Buttontoria buff. And I will see you guys for the next one. Go give Fox my love. Good night.